Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel, to one of the most shocked, surprised, and baffled Laurenz Vescoli you've ever probably seen on a day where I did not expect to be talking to you guys. I'm glad to be talking to you guys. I'm glad to be joined by Aaron. We'll be joined by many other people or a few other people as the stream continues. People are not all available at the same time, especially in such short notice, but we will get there. Wow. I mean, I was sat here yesterday. I was saying, even if some people think we need to sack him, there's no way he will get sacked. And he got sacked. Thomas Tuchel has been sacked by Chelsea Football Club. Wow. Honestly, my girlfriend earlier woke me up. She was looking at her phone and saw the notification and woke me up. I was like, Tuchel has been sacked. And I just woke up and I was like, what? Excuse me? What has happened? Like, I've very rarely been this shocked. Now, I've read a lot since then, read a lot of articles, read a lot of this, read a lot of that. I see a lot of people being like angry, being triggered. And I'm to some extent a little bit angry. I'm a little bit confused. But when I read the reasons, I'm like, I understand the reasons. I see them. And if we didn't do it now, if what is being reported in the background is true, things wouldn't have become better. So then it would have happened eventually anyway. So would we have just wanted more problems for another month and then sack him? Or is it just better to do it now if we were going to sack him eventually anyway? I don't know. We will go through articles. We will go through explanations. We are also joined by Ian, which I'm a big fan of. Ian, I do apologize. I'll go with Aaron first. But thank you for being here, my bro. I appreciate it a lot.
No worries. Sorry, I had to get some stuff set up.
No problem, bro. No problem. Aaron, we were sat here last night after the game. We were talking about the game. We're fuming about how bad we are, how we were good for 5 or 10 minutes, concede a goal and completely capitulate. I was sat here saying I'm not sure if he lost the dressing room. Well, it seems like he lost the dressing room. Or he certainly lost the owners, that's for sure. What's your reaction, Aaron?
Well, firstly, thanks for having me on again in strange circumstances. I think he's lost more than just the dressing room. I think he's his job as well. So that's a lot larger than the dressing room. But no, it just came as a huge shock. Just being on my phone, just watching something, and then seeing at the top of my screen it says a club statement about Thomas Tuchel, and I thought, right, what's going on here then? Like this seems strange. You don't normally get those kind of statement notifications come up, and I click it and I just see Chelsea and Thomas Tuchel parted ways, and I thought this seems way too early on in the season, considering he's just been backed with a 273 million window or whatever it was. To then go 7 games into a season, granted, it hasn't been a good start to the season, but 7 games into the season is all he's got, and they've given him the boot. And for me, it just feels way too early on. I don't know, like, kind of what the whole idea of giving a manager £273 million in a window, backing him, giving him players that he wants, and then getting rid of him, a week after the window ends. I don't quite understand where the decisions come from. I kind of get it in terms of the form and stuff. I think the statement they released, I feel like a lot of it was bullshit in terms of like the whole, it just seemed very PR type thing. But it just, I don't know how I feel. Like I personally wouldn't have done it. I don't think it's right to sack him this early on. I think you could have given him a lot more time. I see people putting on Twitter like all of his record as a Chelsea manager, and he has a 60% win record, which isn't even particularly bad. So to then get the sack based off of current form when there's still plenty of time to turn it around, I think it's pretty premature. But I think the only upside to it is seeing that although they've then made this decision, they're being proactive and already approaching Brighton, and I think Todd Boehly's meeting Graham Potter later to discuss things.
Just read it as you were talking.
Yeah,
we're going to meet Graham Potter this afternoon.
Yeah, it's Boehly's meeting Potter later, which is proactive. It's good. They're trying to solve the issue as soon as possible, but it's still, I feel sorry for Tuchel. Like I understand like the whole responsibilities he had were a lot more than just managing the team over the window, and it can be a lot for a manager, but I still think it was too early.
Okay, interesting, very interesting. I mean, I feel like I've read after the West Ham game? Probably more likely after the Southampton game. that in the now last 15 Premier League games, obviously going from over last season to this season, Tuchel had the same number of points as Frank Lampard in his last 15 Premier League games when he got sacked. Now, 15 Premier League games is a lot more than people think about. 15 Premier League games is nearly half a season. Like 15 Premier League games is like 3.5, 4 months of football. Like that's not of continuous football, excluding a summer break. Ian, thank you for being here. I haven't spoken to you as much since, like, especially on results that we've just been struggling with so far this season. So obviously I haven't spoken to you after yesterday. And also the reports are the decision. I mean, Matt Law is saying that. Nizar Kinsella and a few others are saying it was made after the game last night. But Matt Law is saying that the decision would have been made today regardless of win, loss, or draw against Zagreb, which is very interesting. So, Ian, your reaction, like, are you just shocked, or are you angry? Do you understand, or what's your feelings towards this happening?
Well, when Lampard got sacked, I had my questions about Tuchel. I tried to accept him with open arms, and I have to say I really enjoyed the way that he handled himself in the early stages. Obviously, won us the Champions League. Even last year, the way that he dealt with so many different problems, I really grew to love him. And I'm gonna ask questions again of whoever comes in next and everything, because it's mind blowing. I am and am not surprised all at the same time. I think I can understand why he's gone. I can understand about the form, and I think it was the last 50 Premier League games or something like that. He's conceded 53 goals compared to the first 50 where he conceded 24 or something like that. I saw a stat somewhere on Twitter earlier, but it says a lot. We're talking about current form. We ain't talking about Champions League winners. We ain't talking about club world champions. We're not talking about that. We're talking about, as of right now, is Thomas Tuchel the guy to take Chelsea forward? I think a lot of people have lost faith, and I think that the board always wanted to make some sort of a statement. I didn't think it would be getting rid of Thomas Tuchel. I thought it might be getting rid of one or two big names. But, I said it before. I've said it many, many times. Player power has been a problem at Chelsea for a number of years and will continue to be a problem unless you stick with a manager and you build a proper process, which is what I think that Boehly and co want to do. I just think that the player power that's going on now is very different compared to the player power that existed 10, 15 years ago when you had John Terry and Lampard and Drogba and Ashley Cole, Petr Cech, a real spine of a team that were all legends. This current group now, are they legends on that same capacity? No. So I still think it's down to the players. I still think they're the ones that have played the game and haven't upped their levels, but unfortunately, the way the football is, it would be a lot easier to get rid of a lot easier to get rid of Tuchel than it would be to get rid of a load of players.
The problem that I see now, that's the problem where I agree with what Aaron said, that it was too early, because some of it is feeling this to me. Now we'll get into some reasons that were revealed by Matt Law. Now, of course, we've had some previous with Matt Law and people like Antonio Rudiger, where things were reported as exclusives and as facts, which maybe were not facts in the end. Who knows, right? Whether Antonio Rudiger was bullying youth players or not. I still find it unlikely, but he sticks by it. Would he really risk his reputation on a story like that? I don't know. But we got rid of a lot of the players that Tuchel didn't want to have around. He got rid of... I mean, he seemed unsure about Lukaku, but Lukaku is gone. Werner is gone. Hudson-Odoi is gone. And so many more, obviously, and a lot more around it that were less involved. So, you got rid of some of these players. It didn't seem like until very recently that someone like a Mason Mount or, I don't know, some of the other main players in the team would be a big issue for Thomas Tuchel. Now, we obviously also backed him in the summer. Now, do I think Fofana will be a problem for whoever the new manager is? No, I think they'll be happy to have Fofana. I think Koulibaly, I think most managers will be happy to have Koulibaly. Mind you, we had to replace Rudiger, regardless of whether it was Thomas Tuchel as the manager, Graham Potter, or my flippin' Nan. We had to replace Antonio Rudiger regardless of what, right? So Koulibaly won't be an issue. I don't think Raheem Sterling will be an issue for any manager. He's clearly a very good player that I think most managers would be reasonably happy to have around. Cucurella, I mean, if we go for Graham Potter, he can't exactly be unhappy with Cucurella now, will he? So, But then you were talking about the last two, where it's a bit like, all right, so on deadline day, we signed Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who was purely a Thomas Tuchel signing.
Yeah.
And 6 days later, we sack Tuchel. So, and then we hear that apparently would have happened regardless of win, draw, or loss yesterday.
Yeah.
So what?
It doesn't add up. It doesn't add up for me.
Midfielder, but is he what Graham Potter will want? I don't know. I honestly don't know.
But I think it's a difficult one with Tuchel and the Aubameyang situation, and a lot more, because I think that they wouldn't have wanted Tuchel to go. I think they hoped that Tuchel was going to be this guy and that could really build a project and all that sort of stuff. But I think something happened last night. I think after the game, because obviously Boehly was there and we all knew he was there, he watched his youth team get battered, whatever we got beaten. Was it 4-1 or something like that?
4-2, I think, but yeah.
4-2. We got battered in that as a youth team, and then he's seen his prize asset, the men's first team, go and perform as abysmally as they did. Todd Boehly's right to have these questions, all the time. Of course he is. And I've just seen people in the chat just kind of reading through them and whatever. This could be the start of something brand new and brilliant. This could be the start of everything that Chelsea fans are hoped for. And, the next manager who comes in, is it Graham Potter? Is it, Pochettino? Is it Zidane? Is it whoever? It could all be a massive success. So I wouldn't dive too much into it just yet, because again, we don't know. It could be brilliant, it could be crap. But in terms of the players that have been brought in and the ones that have gone, Werner and Tuchel always liked Werner and liked what he brought to the game. And he always
apparently, actually, towards the end, they kind of lost. Like they,
I'm sure they did.
Werner started being annoyed at Tuchel.
Yeah, no, I'm sure they did. But there was a large chunk of the time where they did like each other and they were useful together. You forget that Werner started the Champions League final and made a very important run to allow the space to open up for Havertz when obviously the goal went in. So I think I do think that's something to consider, is the fact that Werner, when maybe Tuchel didn't want to get rid of him just yet, maybe he did. I mean, I think we all would pretty much agree we would have got rid of him because he was on a massive wage. But, you think about Lukaku, he wanted that bigger centre forward. He didn't necessarily get one. There's reports I saw about Ronaldo being mentioned and Tuchel didn't want him. I just think that there was a complete difference in ideas from obviously the club and the ownership compared to Thomas Tuchel, the manager. And obviously the club are the ones that got all the money and going to control it all. So I wouldn't necessarily turn around and say that he's lost the dressing room as such, or, certain players that came in annoyed him and certain ones that left, might have hit a nerve as well. But I look at someone like Raheem Sterling, who is a great player, but his signing, everything about it was always numbers based. Numbers. You've never really seen Tuchel mention about numbers at any press conference or any meeting or anything that he's done. But you then think about the American ownership, and who obviously American sports is full of numbers and full of stats and, wanting to make sure that we're all the best and all that sort of nonsense. But I'm not sure that a player like Sterling, who was the big landmark signing this summer, was the kind of player that Thomas Tuchel wanted. So you don't know what sort of approach they're going for. And maybe this is actually the passing of, company with Thomas Tuchel is actually the best for both parties. And maybe we just carry on, He may have completely lost the dressing room. I'm not going to say that that's not the case. I don't know. Maybe that will come out in the next few days.
Yeah,
but
we'll get to an article. I'm not sure if you've had time to read that, Ian. We'll get into an article, and maybe we'll all have. Well, I've already read it, but maybe it will change your guys' opinion slightly, just because it's very interesting. And when I say you guys, not just Ian and Aaron, I also mean the people in the chat. I mean, it's strange. Now, Tuchel did say he really wanted Sterling, but who knows whether that's to be believed? Do you know what I mean? Let's quickly, it's not very long anyway. Let's quickly go through Chelsea's statement. Chelsea Football Club has today parted company with head coach Thomas Tuchel. On behalf of everyone at Chelsea Football Club, the club would like to place on record its gratitude to Thomas and his staff for all their efforts during their time with the club. Thomas will rightly have a place in Chelsea's history after winning the Champions League, the Super Cup and Club World Cup in his time here. As the new ownership group reaches 100 days since taking over the club, and as it continues its hard work to take the club forward, the new owners believe it's the right time to make this transition. Chelsea's coaching staff will take charge of the team for training and the preparation for upcoming matches as the club moves swiftly to appoint a new head coach. There will be no further comment until a new head coach appointment is made. Not a very long statement. Not a very like, oh, we love you, Thomas, but at the same time, well, we sacked him. So are we expecting like, oh, lovey-dovey? That wouldn't exactly make sense now, would it? Before I get to you, Charlie, Ian, you want to add something on?
Can I just ask the question? Do you think it's a funny coincidence that it's 100 days?
No, seemingly it was like after 100 days, they were doing like a review of their first 100 days. And then they were like, actually,
Yeah.
you know. Well, what a weird coincidence as well, though. 100 days, them in charge. Yesterday was Thomas Tuchel's 100th game as Chelsea manager. Like it's a weird coincidence. Almost like the Illuminati is real, man. I'm telling you.
It's very odd.
Charlie.
Very odd.
Yeah, it is. It is a bit weird. Charlie, thank you for coming on such short notice. Obviously, you were awake for much longer than I was. But I literally woke up with, like, my girlfriend literally woke me up saying, Tuchel has been sacked. That's how I woke up. How did you know? How did the news find you, shall I say? And what's your reaction, bro? Before we get into any more details and stuff.
News found me. I was at work this morning. I had a quick refresh on the Twitter, and up pops the Ornstein dagger that Tuchel's gone, and then that was it for me, mate. That's how I saw it. Do you know what? I'm fuming about this one. There's so many questions, and probably not really going to get any answers from them for a while. I wouldn't have thought. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Look, we're under no illusions that it's not been good enough this season. Like, you know, we've got to play better football. We've got to, you know, pick up better results and whatnot. But you can't seriously tell me that, you know, as a new owner, that this is a guy that you were discussing a new contract for a couple of weeks ago. Like, don't tell me that you're discussing a new contract for this guy whilst discussing that you're also thinking, actually, we need to get rid of him. Because if you don't just wake up on a Wednesday morning and decide, we're going to sack the manager, this is something that would have been discussed for at least a week or so, which then leads me on to my other point. Why sign Aubameyang on deadline day when you know you're sacking this guy? Why? The only reason Aubameyang has come is for Thomas Tuchel. Thomas Tuchel wanted Aubameyang because of the relationship. Aubameyang was going to come to Chelsea for Tuchel predominantly. Yeah, and you see it, you put it in the group chat, Laurenz. You know, you see that in his unveiling video. Oh, I'm looking forward to playing for him again. Yeah, enjoy played for him for an hour, and now he's gone. So,
and in that period, you were the main reason why we didn't win yesterday, because Aubameyang decided to not shoot for some unbeknownst reason to everybody else.
I just don't get it. Look, there's things coming out today that you can tell from Tuchel's body language, his demeanour. Like last night was a prime example. Like he just sat in the bench for the whole 90 minutes.
I'm not even sure if he still wanted to be here, if I'm honest.
No,
that's why
I don't think he did either.
Angry at this decision.
But you got the writing on the. But the writing was on the wall. You know, we've seen managers in the past. We've been down this route before. When you lose games like we're losing, like you lost against Leeds, like we lost against Southampton, particularly the comments after the Southampton game, you can sort of think, yeah, the writing's on the wall here. You can kind of see this coming to an end. And to be honest, even if we'd beaten Dinamo last night, there was going to be a change soon. He probably would have walked anyway. But it just doesn't. For me, it doesn't make sense because I understand when new owners come in, they like to bring their own guy in. Let's say that. But there was no energy or no kind of anything from this ownership group that they wanted to dispose of Tuchel and have their own guy in. So why would you then give Tuchel all this backing, you know, get him involved in the transfers and that, ask him who he wants, spend 250 odd million pounds on getting his players in, and then deciding to abandon the project after 6 matches. Like that doesn't make any sense. You know, we've got no football structure in place. There's no director of football. Like there's no structure above Thomas Tuchel. And then, you know, you'll get into it now in a sec. But I'm seeing things today from journalists coming out that, you know, they are annoyed that he wasn't as proactive in the transfer talks, etc. Like with the example of Xavi, like having conversations with Jules Koundé. They wanted him to be more involved and in that way. But at the end of the day, like for me, it makes no sense. And it's just, if you're going to get rid of him when you come in and build with your guy then. Don't give him all this backing, bring his players in, and then decide at the most convenient moment just to jump ship. You know, Tuchel stuck with us through our darkest days at Chelsea. The new owners have come in, saying all these nice things about him, and at the first difficult moment, they fucked him off.
While I agree with that in general sentiment, I agree that he stuck with us in the sanctions period and stuff. Now, what we're going to go through now, again, it's journalists, so who knows how true that is. But if a lot of the things that are in this article are true, then one could say he didn't stick with us this summer as much as we needed him to. Now, maybe it's unfair that we needed him to do it that much, but that's a situation that Todd Boehly isn't at fault for, that even Roman Abramovich isn't at fault for. Quite frankly, Vladimir Putin is at fault for that. Like, that we had this situation as a whole, right? And while I agree with you, Charlie, in the sense of just sack him at the beginning, I believe them personally that they wanted to have him. But then in the summer, they realized, actually, maybe we don't. Now, is that harsh? Is that fair? No. Well, is it harsh? Yes. Is it fair? No. But you know my feelings, and I said it to Ian and Aaron already earlier, Charlie. Did I feel that it would have been, that things would have gotten better had we given it, say, another month, another 2 months, say until the World Cup in November? Would it have gotten better? Do I honestly believe that? No. But do I know for sure? No. That's why it's a bit difficult, because he only had one game with Aubameyang, a completely unfit Aubameyang. I think it was a completely wrong decision by Tuchel to start.
Shouldn't have started him.
Aubameyang was nowhere near ready to play a game of football.
Not fit.
But also, Zakaria didn't get involved at all, right? So it's two of the new signings weren't even there yet, but at the same time, 4 others were. Now, Fofana only joined us very recently, but the others weren't. And arguably, the more games they played under us, the worse they got. Koulibaly's best game was probably his first one. Sterling's best game was probably his second one. So the more games we played, even the other new signings got worse. So,
I mean, you could tell the vibe was off. Like, you could tell, even going as far back as pre-season, you could tell the vibe was off. Like, his comments were so uncharacteristic after we got battered by Arsenal. You could tell things weren't as they seemed in and around pre-season. But you kind of put that to one side. The new season starts. We get the win at Everton, kind of robbed against Spurs, and then. But if we're being honest, though, I don't want to say the writing's been on the wall, because I wasn't expecting this to happen, but. Yeah, I don't know. I think this has potentially been coming for a number of weeks now. You know, once you see his comments in after games, once you see the way we're performing, you see how he's
West Ham. He was talking. I think it was after West Ham or Southampton when he was talking about Petr Cech again, how he misses him, and I'm like,
but there's no structure in place. Like, it's all very well, Boehly, to get rid of these guys. Fine, I get you want to bring your own people in, but don't get rid of what's there and then not have anyone lined up to come in. Now, of course, obviously, Cech and Marina. They could have decided to move on anyway, but
apparently, I think it's this article or the other article. It says that Marina got sacked, or was told to leave basically, and Cech left on his own accord. So
yeah, but it's because Cech knew he was going to have to leave anyway, because they were going to bring their own guys in. I mean, I'm seeing things that they want to bring Paul Mitchell in, who's a big fan of Pochettino. I mean, that's a reason to not bring him in for me. Poch is washed, but back to Tuchel. It's for me, it's just. It doesn't make sense. So many things don't add up, but yet when you look at it, there's also things that kind of do make a lot of sense. You could, with the stuff coming out about the atmosphere at the training ground there, the players not being happy with being played in multiple positions. How many times, mate, have we said on here that why does he not just play players in their position? I get it, you've got to be adaptable as a football player. And if you're told to play in a position, you're going to play it. But I can understand players getting pissed off with constantly being played out of position. I think I don't want to call them bad eggs as such, but I think there's Pulisic and Ziyech are clearly two issues in and around the dressing room, in and around the club. They don't want to be here. You could tell. And I think that's caused big problems. I don't think they don't believe
maybe
in
that's
football
why
anymore.
Chelsea refused to let them go in the end. Because they were like, well, we might have a new manager very soon, so maybe then they don't want to go.
But do you know what the biggest problem is going to be, right? When a new manager comes in, if fucking Ziyech and Pulisic and stuff start playing unbelievable football, it's... you could just tell that we'll probably win 4-0 on Saturday as well, and it's just a nonsense.
You're confident. If we win 4-0 against Fulham, I'll be shocked. If we even create 4 chances, frankly, I'll be shocked. But that's a whole different conversation. Let's get through this article, because I know Aaron doesn't have endless amounts of time. So let's get into that, and maybe I'll stop at some point in between and get your guys' thoughts. So as we start, revealed why Chelsea's new owners decided Thomas Tuchel had to go. Tensions over the summer and German's buy-in to the Boehly Clear Lake project meant this could never be a long-term relationship. Thomas Tuchel this week completed 100 games in charge of Chelsea, but it took the owners just 100 days to come to the conclusion that the new era requires a new head coach. Chelsea's defeat to Dinamo Zagreb, attended by co-controlling owners Todd Boehly and Eghbali, in many ways underlined the decision that was already in the pipeline regardless of results. It was during the review of 100 days of active ownership that Boehly and Eghbali discussed their progress in creating a new culture at Chelsea and the long-term prospects of Tuchel, who had done little to prove that he wanted to take a proactive part of it. Publicly, he insisted he was in it for the long haul, saying before the trip to Croatia that he hoped there will be another 100 games, then another 100 coming. But privately, his attitude and demeanour raised serious doubts, and that ultimately was his undoing, even more than Chelsea suffering 3 successive away defeats or a series of turgid performances. The fact that Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang looked to be a deadline day signing with Tuchel's name on it proved to be a red herring. Boehly and his Clear Lake Capital co-owners want a new culture at Stamford Bridge and decided that Tuchel is not the man to help lead it. Boehly and Eghbali's initial plan had been to put their faith in Tuchel. He was given greater control in the transfer market and backed with more responsibility than any coach had enjoyed under previous owner Roman Abramovich. But 100 days of working together raised doubts over whether the relationship could be one for the long term. Instead, it increasingly appeared that Tuchel was perhaps better suited to the more detached management style of the past regime. Boehly and co will be aware that this is a decision that will invite scrutiny and criticism, especially following a transfer window in which they spent almost £300 million. Having made himself chairman and taken on the title of interim sporting director, Boehly put a target on his back, and there will be some anger from a section of supporters who idolise Tuchel and ridicule from those pundits who have already accused Chelsea's owners of playing real-life championship manager. The decision to sack former chairman Bruce Buck and director Marina Granovskaya were never likely to cause much of a public relations storm, while Petr Cech went of his own accord, having been asked to stay. But Tuchel had earned himself a place in the heart of supporters for the 2021 Champions League success and is widely regarded as one of the world's finest coaches. Ultimately, however, Chelsea's owner know they must ignore the noise and concern themselves with whether or not the dressing room will react badly to Tuchel's removal. The evidence in Zagreb seemed to suggest that there will be far fewer dissenting voices from among the playing squad. Given how his popularity dropped with a number of players, Boehly and Eghbali can be confident that they will not face any sort of revolt. They will explain that sacking Tuchel is aimed at the long term and a desire for joined-up thinking rather than a short-term power trip or knee-jerk reaction to a poor start to the season. The fact Graham Potter is the favourite of Chelsea's targets to replace the former PSG man proves that point. Boehly's philosophy and that of his partners is to hire for the long term, as proved by some of Chelsea's players being handed 6-year contracts. Meanwhile, Dave Roberts, the manager of Boehly's other major sport interests, the LA Dodgers baseball team, has been in charge for 7 years and in March signed a new 3-year deal that will take him through to 2025 and a decade at the helm. Roberts has been through peaks, and I'm not. How do people actually pronounce this word? Can any of you tell me this, please? I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
Troughs, yeah.
Troughs. There you go. Fair enough. Troughs. Peaks and troughs. But crucially, he believes in those above him just as much as they put their faith and money into him. Tuchel reiterated on several occasions that he did not enjoy becoming more involved in this summer's recruitment process and consistently bemoaned the loss of Cech as the club's technical and performance advisor. That caused some raised eyebrows, given Boehly and Eghbali did most of the heavy lifting in the transfer window themselves, working around the clock across different time zones. If anybody faced scrutiny and pressure this summer, it has been Chelsea's new billionaire owners rather than the head coach. A clash of management styles first surfaced on Chelsea's tour of the United States, during which Tuchel cut an irritated figure. The German could not contain his anger following the 4-0 thrashing by Arsenal in Orlando and spent the entire journey back to England deep in his own thoughts. It is unlikely that Tuchel was a particularly enthusiastic member of the WhatsApp group that was set up to improve communication and discuss transfer targets. The fact that the 49-year-old prefers to be left to work and solve problems on his own, along with his close circle of coaches, is not in line with the inclusive approach of Boehly and Eghbali. They want a coach who they feel comfortable bouncing ideas off and peppering with questions, even some that may seem tiresome to those with more football experience. There is also a desire for all of Chelsea's departments to become more intertwined and cooperative. Boehly's interest in signing Cristiano Ronaldo proved an early difference of opinion, with the American reluctant to simply take no for an answer from Tuchel, who, according to sources, seemed exasperated at having to explain his reasons for not wanting the Portuguese. Crucially, the owners want a coach that they can invest in for the future, who they believe is prepared to make an equal commitment. The first 100 days with Tuchel did not offer enough encouragement that he would relish their style or help create the culture they want to breed. Only last Saturday, Tuchel made it clear that he had little interest in involving himself in the appointment of Chelsea's next permanent sport director, which again underlined his reluctance to operate more globally within the club. The atmosphere at Chelsea's training ground had been described as tense, and Tuchel's popularity nosedived with the group of players who felt they had been treated unfairly, both in terms of selections and positions they were asked to play. Players have been left in the cold, only to be brought back unexpectedly before being dropped again. Hakim Ziyech started a defeat to Southampton, despite the fact he had been trying to negotiate a move out of Chelsea, with Christian Pulisic taking the place in the following game against West Ham United. Ziyech did not look like a man trying to do his head coach any favours when he was thrown on at halftime in Zagreb yesterday. Decisions such as those have not only been confusing to outsiders, and Tuchel's irritated demeanour did not discourage some views within a dressing room that out-of-favour players would be more likely to outlast the head coach. Chelsea's co-controlling owners wanted to be clear that the next head coach will be somebody who is invested in the project and who the players expect to be in charge for many years. And Potter would seemingly tick the boxes. He seems a better fit for Chelsea's new era than Tuchel, a hand-me-down, albeit a smart one, from a culture Boehly and Iqbali have made it clear they want to leave behind. That's that, but we'll get to other articles later. But Aaron, your initial reaction. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, that I just bored you with a lot of reading of that, but I was like, well, if
it's well read, mate. Well read.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Aaron, what's your thoughts? Because when I read this, and honestly, when I read this first thing this morning, I'm like, that's when I stopped being so angry, because now maybe I disagree personally with their stance that they want their manager to be that involved. But at the same time, they are the owners, right? Roman Abramovich did what he always thought was right. So Roman Abramovich thought it was right to sack a manager every 18 months. Now, I know it seems like Boehly is doing that now with Tuchel as well. But if Boehly, as the owner of this football club, wants a manager that's heavily involved in all sides of the football club, then as the owner, in a way, he should get that. Because if that's how he sees himself as bringing the club forward, and then he has a manager that doesn't work with that, then we're going to be at a crossroads. And it's always going to be the owner winning over the manager. It's never going to be the manager winning over the owners who just signed an agreement that they are quite literally not allowed to sell the club for 10 years. So then I'm like, maybe it just had to happen. If Tuchel just didn't want what the owners wanted from him, then there was no other option. But Aaron, what's your thoughts?
I kind of get it to a certain degree what you're saying, because ultimately when it comes down to what the owners want, they're the ones who are in charge of the club, and if the manager's not gonna sort of work with how they want to work, then it's never gonna work. Short term, long term, it's just not gonna work out, because they're not gonna see eye to eye. But I think my biggest issue with it is if they had this vision of wanting a manager who's long term, and they didn't see Tuchel as being that man, they should have got rid of him in the summer and then appointed someone, and when they went into the transfer window, worked with that manager in order to get his targets. Because there's no point in now having Tuchel.
But don't you think that kind of saying they didn't know that before? That only started to be a thing after we lost 4-0 to Arsenal. And at that point, it was maybe a bit too late, because we were so busy with transfers. Did we have time to get a new manager? Do you know what I mean?
I get that, but then on the flip side, I would say, like, if that's the case, then that's fair enough. But then you have to look at it on the other side and say, okay, well then if you're gonna go through all of this and keep him here and sign the players that he wants, then you then cannot go and do what you've done and get rid of him this quickly. It's either one or the other. If you want a manager that's long term, get rid of him in the summer. You've then got to a point where, okay, that wasn't sort of the way they were looking. And then it was once we were in pre-season and heavy in the transfer window, that's when it was like, okay, it's become more apparent. But you can't then go and sign the players that he wants and then get rid of him straight away. To me, that is ludicrous. And just to touch in on the one of the things in the club statement was to do with something they said about 100 days. And I read up a little bit about it because it seemed a bit odd. And in business, they tend to have this thing called a 100-day plan, which is like for new leaders. So when I was reading about it, I'll just read like a little bit off the page, if that's all right, just to sort of make a bit more sense. So it says, a 100-day plan is an action plan to guide executive leaders through their first critical months in a new role, outlining strategies and tactics to identify and engage key stakeholders and to build relationships, understand the business, set goals, and gain traction quickly so you can set up a foundation for long-term success in an organization. So once I'd read that, it kind of made a lot more sense as to why they've then gone and put that in the statement, because it stuck out like a sore thumb initially, because it sort of felt like some sort of information that wasn't really needed. But then once you go and actually read that little bit and understand it more, it kind of then make sense as to what they're doing, but I don't think they've gone about it in the right way.
And that might be fair. That might be absolutely fair. I've just read something here that is apparently true, as said by Simon Phillips. Chelsea's new board is thought to have analysed Thomas Tuchel's 100 games as Blues boss, identifying a worrying trend of 24 goals conceded in the first 50 matches and 53 goals conceded in the second 50 matches. That is concerning, I will say, when you say it like that. 24 goals in 50 games and then 53 goals in the next 50 games. That is not ideal. But Ian, now that before we go through the second article, this time by the Standard, your reaction to the first one, does it change anything of what you said initially? I'm not sure if you had read much of like that kind of thing, or does it not really change a lot?
No, not really. The thing that annoyed me, I forget the exact wording of it, but it was something along the lines of players that have been out of favour and that have been told to play in different positions that they're not used to. You know, he doesn't name them, but who are they? You know, we can have guesses. It sounds like to me that's Callum Hudson-Odoi, that's Pulisic, that's Ziyech. You could even argue it's Mason Mount or Havertz. You don't know. But we assume it's forwards that are being told to play in out of position and that sort of thing. So
maybe it's Reece James having to play right centre back.
Maybe, yeah, no, maybe there could probably be a few, but you know, when we're talking about this rebuild and everything that's going to happen, and we are going to have a bit of a transition anyway. Forget Thomas Tuchel being sacked. We were always going to have a little bit of a transition next summer because you've got Jorginho and Kante. It's going to be a new look midfield. Thiago Silva will probably leave. You know, in terms of players who, you know, a fair few of them will know that opportunities are going to arise at different times. But I just think there's this. I think when Lampard was in charge and the amount of money that we spent in that window, which was I think about 220 million during the pandemic as well, I think there was a real statement of intent, like we're going to go and win stuff and we're going to go and win it now. We've got a phrase in American sports we call it ring chasing. So there's teams that, you know, there's a couple of players who go, oh, I can go and pick any team I want. They'll go and take a cut price deal to go and win like a championship or whatever before they retire. It's quite a normal thing. But that was essentially happening here at Chelsea. But it's players like Pulisic, it's players like Ziyech, and probably a couple of others as well that have got a real opportunity for themselves, especially in that window where actually it's now like, okay, I've won the Champions League. I didn't think I was going to win it as quickly as I have. Now I just want to play. I want to go and get in my national team. I want to go and earn as much money as I can. And I think the intentions have changed massively amongst the squad. Can Tuchel be blamed for that? Not really. You know, he's unfortunately a victim of his own success. Can I add something to that?
Probably also the squad not believing that they would realistically beat Liverpool or City. I mean, Liverpool have had an equally as bad, if not worse, start to the season as we did. But maybe that's also part of it, that they didn't believe that we would get that other big trophy they're still missing, right? So maybe that's partly of what you're saying as well.
I do just think it's a change. I do think it's a change, a massive change. But you know, the stat was about 24 goals in the first 50 games, and then afterwards, I mean, I'm just going off the top of my head. We've conceded what 12 or 15 already this season, something like that.
12. More than in 04 or 05 already.
Yeah, exactly. You know, exactly. And I think that's the problem as well. You know, we're saying about those 50 goals or whatever. Well, half of that's already come already before we've had even half a season or even a quarter of the season hasn't even gone yet. And we've conceded 13 or 15 goals or whatever it is. Yeah. So it's not good. It isn't good enough. 100% it isn't good enough. But, you know, you have to ask yourself the question, why? Why is it not good enough? Is it purely Thomas Tuchel? Is it the certain personnel problem, which is then going to continue to just go round and round and round, bring on Ted Lasso all day? He needs to get promotion back to the Premier League. You know, there's so many different factors that you could bang on about, but there really is. I just think there's no consistency amongst this, which is why I think there's been a plan in place for a lot longer than just the last week or so.
And I'm actually going to say that to you now. So as you were talking, I saw something, a bit of news. Chelsea owners aiming today to have a deal wrapped up for Graham Potter and his coaching staff to be in place for Fulham. Someone then replied to that saying, this makes me feel this was in place a few weeks ago, happening really fast. And then according to Simon Phillips, now it's not Matt Law, but he's had a very good summer of being right, to be fair to him. He says this is correct. So, or it was. And the Standard have reported that Brighton give Potter permission to discuss £16 million Chelsea move. I can't remember how much we paid back in the day for Andre Villas-Boas, but I hope it goes better than it did at the time when we paid big money to buy a manager out of the contract. Boehly, the new interim manager, bro. I put this in the group chat last night. Charlie, I'm not sure if you saw that, but I put in the group chat where I'm like,
oh, mate, he does everything else anyway. So
interim manager, because it can't be worse than what Tuchel is doing at the moment.
Just on the one thing, it probably is most likely going to be Potter. He's going to meet we're obviously meeting with Boehly and that this afternoon. What happens on the off chance if Potter doesn't actually fancy it? Because
we'll get someone like Pochettino.
Because I'm saying, like, I'm not saying that he'd say no to it, but we're being very presumptive here that he's definitely going to say yes.
Well, he'd be a bit silly not to say yes. Let's be honest, though.
But what I'm saying is,
so much you can do in there.
It's true. But what I'm saying is, though, like when you're looking at what happens at Chelsea, and Potter's someone that spends reasonable amount of time at clubs, and that the new ownership want someone that's going to come in and be a long-term manager, which he ticks that box for sure. But then when he sees like Tuchel being given £200 million to spend and then 6 games later sacked or whatever, like is that something you want to be part of as a manager? Like, this is still a young manager developing himself within the game.
I guess it depends on Todd Boehly how well he can convince him that that's not going to happen to him. I guess.
Sky Sports saying that I think Pice tweeted it. I can't remember what it was, but basically that Potter would be given money to spend in January. And he'd be given a long-term contract. We know that contracts mean fuck all as a manager, but like money to spend in January suggests that Boehly is prepared to dip into his pockets again. And but this is my problem with this, is the fact that like this is how he got in this mess in the first place, was because we keep sacking managers and then we keep giving them money to spend to buy their players. So we're now going to have a situation where
let's not, like, Tuchel would also have been given more money though. Like,
but what I'm saying is that this is how we get in this situation, by sacking managers, and then obviously you back them, the new manager, and they bring in players that they want, and then money you spent on previous players, you can't then get rid of them, and then they're stuck on massive contracts, and we can't sell them. And this is exactly what happens.
But at the same time, it had, like, if they didn't think Tuchel was the right guy, then it's no point forcing. Okay, we said we was going to stick with one manager. That's fine. Even though we don't think he's the right guy, we need to stick with him.
But if he's not the right guy, get rid of him in pre-season. Like, don't let him have this money and bring these players in.
Do you believe that they could have known that in pre-season already?
Well, mate, there was bad vibes coming out of pre-season. Like, let's be honest.
What would you have said if they sacked him after we lost 4-0 in pre-season? Do you know what I mean? Like,
I would have been fuming, but I would have actually preferred him to be sacked in pre-season rather than sacked after 6 games with spending all this money on him. But all right, let's don't get me wrong that, like, Graham Potter is obviously not going to be pissed off with having Sterling, Koulibaly, Cucurella, Fofana, and whatnot. But obviously, he's not probably going to be best pleased with Aubameyang. But yeah, it's for me, like, if you're going to change the manager,
he's used to Denny Welbeck.
But I just think that I like what Boehly's come in and done, but I don't like this, and it doesn't make sense to me. The timing, particularly, and the backing you've given the manager and whatnot, I don't really get it. But I mean, another interesting point is, obviously we know that Potter likes young players, likes developing young players.
Now, after we've just sold Billy Gilmore to flipping Brighton permanently, like, do you know what I mean?
Well, there's that. But I'd be interested to see because we've got a recall option on Callum Hudson-Odoi in January. Does with Potter coming in, which we think, do you think he might think, actually, you know what, I might recall him?
It depends on how it goes between now and then.
What does that mean? Yeah. I mean, what does that mean for Romelu Lukaku? Very much no future at Chelsea, but could Graham Potter, new manager,
sorry, can I jump in there?
Crack on, mate.
Sorry. Because I was thinking in terms of early, I was like, does maybe Lukaku have a chance again now? But then again, it seemed like Tuchel, Granovskaya, and Cech were more willing to keep Lukaku than Boehly was. So I'm not sure if that changes at all. But who knows? Like, you could be right, Charlie. Absolutely. Shall I move on to this next article, because it's a very interesting one as well. Ian, I'm not sure if your camera is doing weird things, but a lot of the time you're like frozen on my screen. I'm not sure if that's...
No, I don't know.
When you speak, it's fine. But
it looks all right to me, but I don't know.
It looks fine to me, mate.
Does it? On your end as well? Okay, then.
Mate,
is my camera ever frozen on your end?
Mate, it's that Austrian internet,
crappy Austrian Wi-Fi.
They just don't like us anymore now.
Zach doesn't reach that high up, does it, in the mountains?
But Lou, Not sure what this currency is, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, but I appreciate the 10 of it.
Polish zloty.
There you go. Could be. I've no idea what that's worth in my money.
It is. It's Polish zloty.
No. I believe you that much. I
thought Poland was euros, though.
No, there's zloty. They got their own currency.
See, the more you know, The more you know. But I appreciate the donation. I appreciate the joke. But let's get through this article because this is also very interesting. It's by Nazar Kinsella, as you can see from the Evening Standard, about why Thomas Tuchel was sacked. Chelsea's concerns have been growing for more than a month. Co-owners Todd Boehly and Benedict Barley were in attendance in Zagreb last night and made a final decision overnight with a press release drafted and sent out early this morning. So that's what I wanted to highlight. Also, a few things from Simon Phillips, but also what Matt Law said earlier, that this was going to happen regardless of the result. They're saying the final decision was made overnight, so who knows, right? It follows insight from the dressing room that a host of players had begun to question Thomas Tuchel's decisions and his behavior behind the scenes. Typically warm with his players, he had grown harsh and distant to those with knowledge of the dynamics of Cobham. Young players felt harshly targeted after they made mistakes, while the data on clean sheet, chances created, and most importantly, results since the end of last season were plain to see. There was an unnamed fringe player who was earmarked to face Leicester, only to be dropped at the last minute. Tuchel usually explained such decisions, but he did not in this case, and it left the player feeling isolated and angry. Now, I really wonder who this is. We'll debate it in a second. Similarly, Tuchel's policy of explaining decisions to his players directly before the media began to slip in his final months. In his defense, he struggled with the new ownership group as he enjoyed a strong working relationship with both Marina Granovskaya and Petr Cech under Roman Abramovich. Without a sporting director, Tuchel was charged with helping the club make decisions on transfers and was involved in multiple daily conversations about who they did or did not sign. It took a toll on his ability to coach the team. His communication was said to be growing increasingly poor with the new owners who are keen to promote an open and collaborative club culture. Well, period. His assistants tried to step up to cover, but it ultimately hurt the team. The decision by the new owners remains staggering, given that they spent a world record £273 million on 10 signings for Thomas Tuchel over the summer. Now, all right, let's not include Cesare Calzadai in this, but sure. Tuchel's former Dortmund star, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. I mean, this is just purely waffle. Where was the one? Nah, see, I'm mostly trying to highlight. Where was this? There it was. This, I think, for this one, or even this whole thing, typically warm with his players. He had grown harsh and distant to those with knowledge of the dynamics of Cobham, and that's what I think to some extent you saw on the sidelines with how uninvolved he all of a sudden was. Do you know what I mean? And that was like he just wasn't on it as much, and that was strange. So Aaron, I'll start with you again, and obviously if you need to leave, you just let me know, my guy. Also, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I very much appreciate we have 727 people watching, so I appreciate that a lot. If you're new here, please be sure to subscribe. We're on the road to 20,000 subscribers. I'm sure there's plenty of new people here, so get subscribed. There will be either today or tomorrow, whenever it's coming out, probably a stream about potentially Graham Potter. We'll talk about our thoughts on that after we're done with the whole Thomas Tuchel stuff. Aaron, those two kind of little paragraphs here that I highlighted on screen. When I read that, I'm like, maybe it just had to be done. Maybe I agree with both of you and all three of you that maybe it should have been done earlier. But I'm like, I don't know. Imagine how we lose our shit now. Like, yes, in hindsight, Charlie's saying it would have made more sense in preseason. But at the time, would we have thought that? Like, had he actually been sacked in preseason, would we have thought, at least they sacked him in preseason? Because I'm not sure I would have. Maybe Charlie would have, but I'm not sure I would have, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Sorry,
but Aaron,
very quickly before Aaron speaks, do you want to see the list of players who were on the bench for the Leicester game? To read it out?
Yes.
So I can eradicate the people who the whole, thought he'd start and then didn't in the last minute thing. So started in that game was Loftus-Cheek, Gallagher, Jorginho, Mount, Sterling, Havertz, Reece James, Chilwell probably would have been the only other one that maybe would have flagged up. But the players that were on the bench, the youngsters potentially, were Pulisic, Brozier, Hudson-Odoi, Chilwell, or Ziyech. Ziyech isn't a youngster.
Was Chukwuemeka on the bench, bro?
Player. I think was Chukwuemeka on the bench at Leicester?
No.
My initial thought went to Chukwuemeka because they highlighted fringe players. I don't think Pulisic, as much as he's not a starter, I wouldn't deem him as a fringe player.
But Callum was on the bench against Leicester, but he knew he was going anyway. So
yeah, could it be Hudson-Odoi and he was thrown out the door? Because I
don't feel like it's Callum. Who was another one you mentioned? There was someone who I thought could be in.
do you want me to run through the bench again?
Could it be Broja? Would he be deemed as a fringe player?
Yeah, but he's just signed a new 6-year deal.
But after Leicester,
he could be a fringe player.
He kind of is a fringe player, isn't he? I guess
he's a fringe player, and also like he might have signed a contract, knowing the owners are not happy with what Tuchel did there. Then he doesn't need to sign his contract based on what the manager's doing, but what the owners are doing. Yeah. Lou says, "Oh, it must have been Pulisic." I don't know. I wouldn't expect the Argentinians to be Christian Pulisic as a fringe player.
If I was going to be cynical, you could say that Boehly blocked Pulisic's loan move because he knew he was going to bin off Tuchel.
Maybe. Absolutely. I mean, when I see his header last night, I'm like, certainly wasn't trying to do anything for Tuchel. I see, and that's.
Could I just very quickly as well? One of the reasons why I do potentially think it's Pulisic / Hudson-Odoi is if you look at that starting 11, Mount is currently playing as down here is playing as on the left-hand side, basically the left midfield role. Mm-hmm. You could potentially argue that Mount maybe shouldn't have played there as he is out of position. Gallagher was young and inexperienced, who obviously got sent off, so Mount could have potentially played in there. So that left midfield spot is maybe a thing of question, which is why I think potentially it's Hudson-Odoi or Pulisic, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Could be, absolutely. At the same time, it was obviously with Havertz struggling so much and everyone having a big go at Havertz, it also would make sense if Broja is fuming that he doesn't get to start.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So it's a tough one. But sorry, Aaron, I'll finally go back to you now. Thoughts on the whole thing, but in particular those two highlighted paragraphs?
Yeah, I think the the whole thing about the fringe player being dropped without sort of explanation is quite interesting because obviously it's open to speculation, as we've already done. We'll never know who it was, but it could have been plenty of names there. I personally think it was probably like Armando Broja because Havertz was in such shit form, and the cameos that Broja gave when he came on were actually really good. And then there was a lot of pressure on people like Havertz and Mount to be dropped because they weren't performing. So I feel like
had Broja even played as a cameo before Leicester? Oh yeah, at Everton, but that's it, right?
Yeah.
Because but then even with Havertz performing the way that he was, it couldn't have got much worse. So that pressure to then sort of drop Havertz and try something new could have also been a factor involved. Just going over the paragraph as well. It doesn't really, the whole nature of Tuchel's behavior. He doesn't come across as the kind of person who tends to be typically harsh and whatever. He seems to have like this very different vibe about him. So it's quite interesting.
Are you saying you don't believe what it says, or are you saying it shows how bad things were that he still acted like that?
Yeah, no, I don't. I'm not saying I don't believe it. It's obviously nothing is ever going to be a fact. Like we're never going to know for sure. But it's just surprising to hear that he could potentially have behaved like that when he doesn't really tend to come across as that kind of person. But I think it does highlight how bad things were, and I think it does ultimately kind of show like when a manager is under as much pressure as he was, not only on the pitch, but off the pitch with all the stuff that's going on there, trying to sort out all of these other things. It may have just got to him a bit. Also, there was a load of shit going on in his personal life as well that could have gone off, could have come into the workplace.
Which could have also affected like how willing to take on problems he was. The fact that he got divorced. I have no idea whether he got divorced on his accord or his wife's accord. He was the one dating a younger girlfriend, so I don't know whose accord it was, but I don't know. It could have something to do with it for sure.
But there's just loads of factors that you have to think about that could be involved. But it is just ultimately, if the culture at the club just wasn't great and the manager wasn't helping that cause as well, then you can kind of understand maybe to a certain degree if they thought it was probably best to make a change to try and change that culture and bring more of a upbeat, positive vibe into the club to try and turn things around. Because when the chips are down, if everyone's heads are dropping and the manager isn't there to pick up the team because he's down himself, then you're never going to be able to come up out of that ditch and actually start doing things and working together to get into the position that you need to be.
Absolutely. I quickly want to highlight this comment by James Martinez here, because I think you misunderstood something here. I mean, I don't know about the others. I can only speak about myself. But this mentioning Pulisic here isn't at all hating on Pulisic. That, if anything, it's still criticism of Tuchel, because no matter who this happened to, this shouldn't happen to any player. Like whether that was Broja, whether it was Pulisic, no matter who it was, you shouldn't be told you're starting and then dropped and then not told why. Like that behavior won't exactly create a positive dressing room environment, no matter who the player affected by this. So I don't think anyone on this is kind of hating on Pulisic. If anything, I think it's just a case of criticizing.
Sorry,
Tuchel.
just a quick one. Who was the back line in the Leicester game?
Back line in the Leicester game was Reece James, Chalobah, Silva, Cucurella, and then Loftus-Cheek.
Oh, so yeah, because we went with the 4.
No, I think Ruben was right wing back, Cucurella left wing back.
No. It was a back 4 against Leicester, wasn't it?
I'm pretty sure it was a back 5, but then it changed during the game.
It changed to the 4, didn't it? Yeah.
Because
I just wasn't sure whether that fringe player might have been someone like.
Obviously, it's difficult because you only played 28 minutes with 11 players. So
yeah.
But it is named as a. Oh no, yeah, Loftus-Cheek was playing right 10. True. Yeah, no, it
was a 4. Yeah, because it was Chalobah. It was Chalobah in the. Yeah, he was. Anyway, it doesn't really matter now.
Yeah. I hear that. Charlie, I was going to get to you. Do you have much of a reaction to this, regardless of which player it was now? Do you agree with me that shouldn't happen to any player? Like, you shouldn't be told you're starting and then you drop and then not explain.
As a manager, if you're going to drop someone or someone's not in a team, you owe it to that player to tell them why they're not
Especially
being picked.
after you initially told them they would start.
And what they can do. But I just get the feeling that, people like things saying that Tuchel's energy around the place has changed. That's things that I was picking up on as well. His energy in press conferences, his energy on match days in the stadium and whatnot. I think those things were changing. I would agree that, the fact that he was picking Mount and Havertz for pretty much every game, like 5 games on the spin or whatever, when they are playing so badly. I can understand as other players in the squad playing in those positions. You'd be pissed that you weren't getting picked. Like, you'd be thinking, what do I have to do to get picked when these guys are playing so badly? Like, I could understand that being a frustration, but I do think it's a basic courtesy as a manager to say to a player, I'm dropping you, or you're not picked for X, Y, Z reason. Go away and do this. Work on these aspects of your game, and maybe you might be in the team next week. You've got to give players explanations as to why they aren't playing. We saw it under Frank Lampard, Tomori, when he left, done an interview. Like one season he was in the team, next season he was frozen out, given no reason as to why he was not playing. For me, that's unforgivable as a manager, not to explain why players aren't playing.
Can I ask?
And it makes you question: do they not have the explanations, and that's why they don't explain it, or do they not want to explain it? And both are issues.
Well, both are a problem.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a question about that?
Yeah, go on.
Because it's a difficult one, because with Mount and Havertz as well, especially Mount, I'll say in this. Mount is a fantastic player. I really like him. I've met him. I think he's very, very nice lad. I can relate to him quite a lot. I really do have a lot of time for Mason Mount, right? But if him and Havertz are meant to be the two star pieces for this team, and the Americans that have come in and obviously brought the club, they want to make sure that their assets are there and on show. Do you think it's a potential you should be playing X, Y, and Z person, or do you think that Thomas Tuchel genuinely had control over the whole squad at all times? Because I can maybe the same thing with Lampard. I know Lampard wanted to keep Tomori, but then the ownership above turned around and said something different. That's why I just think potentially there could be something that's not being considered about, is actually that such and such and such and such have to play, which when it's Reece James, no one cares because he delivers every single game anyway. But when it's Mason Mount and Havertz who aren't producing as much this season, it's a different approach.
I think there's a certain
I have to disagree with you. I don't think that's the case, that he wasn't allowed to pick his team personally, but I could be wrong. So
we will never know. But
I think he's very stubborn. I think it's clear that one of the things about Tuchel is he was stubborn. He did make big calls, but you always felt that it arrived a little bit late. I don't want to go on about Jose Mourinho, but you can guarantee if Mourinho was here, Mount and Havertz would have been dropped after a couple games. They would have been subbed at half time in certain games.
they could have been sold before the season even got going.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. But this is my point: is that I like Tuchel. I think I like that he shows faith in players, but then I also think one of his downfalls as well is the fact that he's probably shown blind faith in Kai Havertz and Mason Mount this season. It gets to a point where I understand that you might not be getting on with Pulisic and Ziyech. They both want out, but I just think like you've got like the alternative can't be that bad. Like, would a Pulisic or a Ziyech do any worse than what Mount and Havertz have been doing? You would think not.
I can tell you after last night, yes.
Well, after last night, yeah, of course. But yeah, but I'm just not sure. But realistically, there was obviously problems within the squad. I get it that you don't want to, as a player, you want to play in your main position, and you'd be pissed off. Like as a one-off or 1 or 2 games here and there, or filling in, like you can accept that. But when you're week in, week out being asked to play all sorts of different positions, I can understand why that would piss you off as a player. And it's not optimal for the team either, because we had against Leeds, like we had 5 or 6 players in that starting lineup either playing out of position or not playing in their preferred profile in that position. Like,
although I will say Graham Potter is also known to not play players in their positions. But we'll get to Graham Potter in a minute.
Well, I don't know, but like, yeah, it's. Mate, you could talk about it all day, but at the end of the day, like there was obviously big things going on behind the scenes, and it's kind of come to a head. I personally feel that Tuchel, I think, would have walked at some point in this season anyway. So maybe. You could say, well, you might as well just get it done early doors. But I don't know. It doesn't really make sense to me, but I'm sure more things will come out.
It is certainly worrying. Ian, was there anything else you wanted to add to the other article before we kind of look at another article which talks about Tuchel, but also our approach to Graham Potter? Sorry.
No, I don't think I'd say it's about the player power thing again. I mean, clearly there's some opinions that have gone round at the club that player power is okay, but you want to make sure this player power is coming from players who actually deserve to have the power rather than people that you want to have a moan.
I mean, do you think? Sorry, do you reckon, mate, that players that are kind of pissed off because you see? Do you think they? I wouldn't be surprised if certain players have gone directly to the owners.
Yeah, no, I think they have.
And complained about things. But that, for me, I don't know. I mean, this might be a bit old school, but I don't know if if players should be having a direct line of communication with the owners.
Yeah, see, I agree. There's one person who I might say is a little bit different, though. And that's the reason why I have a little suspicion that it is Pulisic, is because there's the American connection.
Yeah.
And I think that the significance of the Arsenal games, I was gonna say it before, but I didn't get a chance. But the significance of the Arsenal loss in Orlando, it was meant to be the showcase piece of this new football club, this new ownership group, go into America and showing off in front of everyone. And actually Chelsea got beaten in America by a team owned by another American. It's not exactly a great start, is it, for Todd Boehly and his journey and all that sort of stuff? And maybe the America thing is something to be considered because of Christian Pulisic. Well, I'm not saying it is. I have no idea. You'd never be able to prove it, of course. Yeah. But I do agree with you, Charlie.
Considering we didn't put Pulisic just like the head guy on all the American tour posters,
but they've always talked about wanting to kind of boost Chelsea's profile within America. You've got the poster boy of American of football of soccer out in the States in Christian Pulisic. You're from a commercial standpoint. If you're trying to grow in America, you're going to want that guy on your team.
But from a commercial standpoint, Graham Potter is the last manager you'd go for. If it's purely
from a commercial standpoint, you would want Cristiano Ronaldo, and then you wouldn't care about what Pulisic was doing.
Yeah. True. And to be fair, Boehly wanted Cristiano Ronaldo. Just
exactly. That's so. Maybe there is some sort of logic in it because he has to protect certain assets.
Absolutely. I have a little set of set of little quotes by very different sources, which just provide a bit of an overall picture before I get to the other article, which I can highlight on screen. This one I've only got on my phone. So I'll just read through all of these things quickly. So first of all, by Matt Law, we already read that, but I'll read it out again quickly anyway. The atmosphere at Chelsea's training ground has been described as tense. A group of players felt they had been treated unfairly, both in terms of team selections and positions asked to play by Thomas Tuchel. Then again by Matt Law, the Chelsea owners wanted to be clear that the next head coach will be somebody who is invested in their project and who the players expect to be in charge for many years. Then by Alistair McGowan, not sure how reliable he is, but he said it was felt Thomas Tuchel had lost the confidence of the Chelsea players and board and had been less communicative with the new ownership. Then Sky reported Chelsea have been considering the decision to sack Thomas Tuchel for some time. It's not a knee-jerk reaction to the Champions League defeat to Dinamo Zagreb. New owners have had concerns for a while and want long-term appointment to move the club forward. Then again, by Matt Law, Todd Boehly's interest in signing Cristiano Ronaldo provided an early difference of opinion, with Boehly reluctant to simply take no for an answer from Thomas Tuchel, who seemed exasperated at having to explain his reason for not wanting him. But how can he be annoyed at having to explaining to his owner why he wouldn't want to play? Like, surely that's a fair enough thing.
But that's just the basic. Right? That's just the basic. But that's a basic thing. But I also think, like, in things like this, the lack of a football structure above Thomas Tuchel is a big problem, because realistically, absolutely, you shouldn't really be having those conversations owner to manager. It should be owner to director of football, and then a manager gets a bit of a consultation on it. Like, he shouldn't be part of the main conversations. And I think
but Boehly wants that to be the case, though.
Yeah, no,
you think it's wrong, but he wants that, right?
But what I'm saying is, though, like, he shouldn't have to have such a big say in it, in terms of there should be multiple kind of people round that table. It shouldn't just be manager and owner. You need a director of football in place, which I think that's caused big issues. I think that's massively detracted away from the work that Thomas Tuchel's
I think maybe
kind of been able to.
Do you potentially see, and that question goes to both of you before I continue these last two bits here. Do you potentially think that part of the concern might have also been that whoever is the new director of football, him and Tuchel won't get on, because Tuchel doesn't want to be involved in shit?
But don't you?
And then if the director of football makes a decision that Tuchel isn't happy with, then what? Because if Tuchel doesn't want to be involved, how can you make sure you don't make decisions that Tuchel isn't happy with?
But I mean, I don't know. But do you have to get manager's permission for a director of football? Like, do you? Is that
no, but otherwise, then he can end like Tuchel ended at PSG and Dortmund if you don't have his permission. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, I'm not saying that they've not tried to get a director of football in, because they have. They wanted Mike Edwards from Liverpool. He wanted to be.
I think they will get one in before January.
He wanted time. He wanted time out of the game. Fine, but I mean, I always think that if he's the main target, wait for your main target. Don't just put someone in for the sake of putting someone in. But at the same time, you've got to realise that, asking a manager to do all this, well, I suppose, extracurricular work outside of his remit, in terms of, as a manager, you want to focus on the work on the training pitch, implementing your tactics, making the team better. It's very hard to have full focus on that when you're being asked questions about sanctions last season, Ukraine, when you're then being asked about, when you're then involved heavily in transfers. Like, that detracts away from being able to do your number one job, which is what you're there to do. Like, you're not, as a football manager, you are not there to be dealing with all these other external things like Tuchel was. And I think that's had a massive detrimental effect.
As a football manager, I think you are. As a football head coach, you're not.
Well, head coach, manager, same.
No, true. But if you're specific about the term, right? Sir Alex Ferguson was a real manager. He didn't even lead all Manchester United's training session.
No, he didn't.
Was a real manager. He would have been involved in that. A person like Thomas Tuchel, he would prefer to be purely a head coach. But I will say one thing, though, Charlie. Thomas Tuchel was very much aware that this would be what he would have to do this summer once Todd Boehly took over. And if he didn't like that, he should have said straight away. And he could have even walked straight away if he wanted, because everyone was aware, the fans, the public, Thomas Tuchel and Todd Boehly were very aware we were not going to have a sporting director this summer. That's why Boehly basically made himself the director of football, right? So we knew we weren't going to have that. And Thomas Tuchel was aware, if Todd Boehly is going to be the sporting director, he will need my help. So if he wasn't happy with that, then either say it or leave, but don't throw a hissy fit.
The problem is he would never leave, because he's going to get paid a shed load of money. And if he walks, he will probably miss out on all that money.
Absolutely.
But that's obviously a contract that's been done between Abramovich and Tuchel anyway. That was never
I'm just saying that while Charlie has a fair point that the manager shouldn't be required to do such things, the manager knew he would be required to do such things going into the summer. So it's not exactly a surprising revelation to him. Do you know what I mean? That he figured out in July actually had too much to do here. I'm like, well, you knew this. Like, you knew this was coming. And he also knew it was only going to be one window. Like, it's not the end of the world. So don't be harsh to players because you're a bit overworked. Like, do you know what I mean? That's not a sustainable or reasonable reaction either, I think.
Have you ever been on holiday with a friend?
Sorry?
Like, have you ever been on holiday with like one friend?
Yeah.
and you both want to do something different on a particular day, and you have like a vote.
You fall
and
out
the vote
about
always
it,
finishes 1-1, and you need the third person to then go, "We're doing this tough shit. We're doing this." That's what Chelsea need right now, and
There's
I
no
don't
third
think
person.
there's no third person, which obviously.
But do you think that?
Director
Do you
of
think
football.
that Tuchel's almost slightly ganged up upon? I don't know if that's the right phrase, but like he's
I
obviously
was really
outnumbered.
wondering where you were going with that, then, Charlie.
But like in terms of obviously, you've got you've obviously got Boehly, Egbali as well and stuff. Like they're obviously going to be very much on the same wavelength in terms of decision making. Whereas if they go into a conversation with Tuchel's very much in a 2-against-1 situation here. There's kind of no one like on his side, as it were. Like if he's got a view and the owners have got a different view, 9 times out of 10, the owners are probably going to go with what they want to do within reason. Like obviously, I know they didn't go for Ronaldo, and they probably would have liked to have done. But I don't know. I think the lack of a director of football has really not helped issues. I'm not saying that we would have been playing much better at the start of this season. We wouldn't be having these issues. I'm not saying that, but I think Thomas Tuchel would have been a lot more focused on the task at hand rather than being distracted with other things that are unnecessary. Unnecessary for him.
Yeah, I do have to say very quickly, I do completely agree with that. And I think that if there'd have been a third person, i.e. director of football, Tuchel might have been dragged along and realised he was actually quite good at it, or might have quite enjoyed it, or whatever, or it might have gone really well. But I think what they're now looking for, i.e. Graham Potter, very likely, is they're going to find that director of football, obviously, to be the third man. And they're also going to find Graham Potter, hoping that he's on the same wavelength. If everyone's on the same page, we move forward and we can all.
Then those kind of issues shouldn't occur anymore. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it's obviously about finding that right person, which is, I understand why they would do it. And if they are massively against Thomas Tuchel, again, I understand why they sacked him, because sometimes you just can't meet in the middle. And I think that maybe that was, by the time they might have been able to meet in the middle or maybe drag Thomas Tuchel along with them, that's 6 months down the line. We've got a new director of football. That's 6 months worth of bad results, and that can't fly at Chelsea Football Club.
That is true. That is true. Let me just finish off 2 more quotes here, and they're arguably the most damning ones, shall I say, by Miguel Delaney, both of them. Both Chelsea games and training sessions have been interrupted by arguments over interpretations of roles, with this only compounded by the number of new players that have come in. And then also, Thomas Tuchel's ideas were no longer transmitting with the Chelsea squad. Some of the players had been talking about Tuchel's private life and how he had a younger girlfriend as his marriage fell apart.
What's that got to do with what's happening at the training pitch?
Well, unless it made Tuchel be more of a prick,
Well, unless it was one of the players. Like, do you know what I mean? Though, like, why does that matter? Like, what he's doing in his private life. Like, I could understand that maybe that like players stop believing in the ideas in that, but that one about his private life, I think, is a bit of a nonsense. But I think we also forget that Tuchel's been going through. He's got a couple of. I think he's got 2 children, or it might be more. With obviously with his now ex-wife, I think. Like, people don't understand that this guy's got a life outside of football. When you're going through a divorce of a mother of 2 of your children, like, you've got to try and leave that baggage and then come into a high pressure environment at Chelsea. That can't be easy to operate at your optimal level when you're dealing with that as well.
Absolutely. It's a tough one. I do want to talk about this because there's been a lot of people in the chat talking about, Brendan Rodgers is a target. I mean, he's one of 4.
Oh, fuck off, Brendan Rodgers.
We're not going to get Brendan Rodgers. It's like, when we had, who was like the worst player we were linked with for a summer move, which we were rumored.
We signed him. It was Baba Rahman.
Baba Rahman, yeah.
No. I mean this summer, bro.
Oh, this one. I don't know.
I can't remember. There were some players where I'm like, what? Why? But these things won't happen. Like, I'm very confident personally. I could be wrong, but I'm very like. If Brighton already said, okay, Brighton was the big stumbling block, like Graham Potter isn't going to be the big stumbling block. He's going to get a huge pay rise compared to Brighton, and he's going to get his first big club, and he's going to like drastically like take a step up in his managerial career. We'll have a second. Well, in a minute, we'll discuss what we think of that. But let's quickly go through this article because I also thought this was very interesting. Now, it's from a little bit earlier on. I'm not sure if Matt Law has updated it since I read it, but let's quickly go through it. Exclusive. Chelsea approached Brighton to speak to Graham Potter. We've known since that Brighton have allowed us. Here it says 10 million compensation. Sky have reported 16 million compensation. We'll see. Stamford Bridge co-owners face possible £10 million compensation bill to appoint coach after sacking Tuchel. Now, let me zoom in a little bit so this is a bit bigger and you guys can actually read along as well while I read it out. Chelsea have made an approach to Brighton to speak to Graham Potter just hours after Thomas Tuchel was sacked by the club's new owners. As first reported by Telegraph Sport, Potter is an early favourite to replace Tuchel at Stamford Bridge, and it is understood Chelsea have already made an approach to Brighton. Chelsea would face a bill of about £10 million to buy Potter out of his Brighton contract, on top of having to pay Tuchel's compensation on a contract that was not due to expire until 2024. Chelsea and Brighton have already done business over the transfer of Marco Correa, Billy Gilmore and Levi Colwill this summer, during the summer, with relations between the two clubs thought to be good. New owners Todd Boehly and Clearlake Capital wants to make a swift appointment and could even have a new man in place in time for Saturday's lunchtime Premier League game against Fulham. That's the next thing I saw in the chat. People talking about John Terry as caretaker.
Oh, no.
It looks like we're going to get... But if I expect...
Potter will be done
today or tomorrow, if I'm honest.
I'd say tomorrow, and he'll do the press conference for the Fulham game.
Exactly that. So I don't expect any caretaker situation to be the case here. Here it says, while Potter is currently the clear favourite for the job, Chelsea could also speak to Mauricio Pochettino, who is out of work, and sound out Zinedine Zidane. But if Chelsea are granted permission to speak to Potter by Brighton and talks go well, then the 47-year-old is likely to be made Tuchel's successor. Chelsea's owners want to make a long-term appointment of somebody they believe can create and cultivate a new culture within the club, who's ready to listen to their ideas and explain his own philosophies. Potter has done just that in each of his managerial jobs so far, at Östersund, Swansea City and Brighton. Now, people will obviously laugh at those managerial stations, job so far. We'll talk about that in a second, though. Who thrashed Leicester City 5-2 on Sunday. Mind you, we only scraped a 2-1 win. I know we're down to 10 men, but still. On Sunday, to remain fourth in the Premier League table after finishing ninth last season and selling key players such as Cucurella and Bissouma. While he's yet to manage in the Champions League, Potter took Östersund to the last 32 of the Europa League on a budget of just under £1 million. That's less than my local club, and we're in the 4th division of Austria. In 2018, when they secured an eye-catching 2-1 victory over Arsenal at the Emirates. Come on, the Potter. Also, I find it quite funny with Potter, Harry Potter and everything. But anyway, Chelsea's owners...
mate, there'll be a few Potter jokes coming about when he joins.
The memes are quite good already. I'd go on Instagram and check them out.
Hey, it's going to be brilliant. It's going to be brilliant.
Yeah,
we're going to play magical football.
There'll be something about can he wave a magic wand on these problems and all that nonsense and whatever. They're queuing up for them.
Proper crap.
Absolutely. Let's quickly finish this article and then we'll talk about the Potter situation. Chelsea owners to meet players. Chelsea players are due for training on Wednesday afternoon, when co-controlling owners Boehly and Benedict Barley are expected to address them to explain their reasoning for sacking Tuchel and offer assurances that a replacement will be appointed quickly. Tuchel was called to a meeting around 9:30 a.m. on Wednesday morning, just hours after the abysmal Champions League defeat to Dinamo Zagreb, when he was informed of his sacking. It is expected that Tuchel's coaches Arno Michels and Charles Löw will follow Tuchel out of Stamford Bridge, with Anthony Barry after we have so bad at set pieces, our set piece manager is taking charge of training. Oh, my days. As first reported by Telegraph Sport, the decision to sack Tuchel had already been taken and the German would have been dismissed win, lose or draw in Croatia. Yeah, I mean, the rest we've already seen. Did someone new just join the stream?
No.
Con is here.
Oh,
wait, you can't see him. Only I can see him. Con, hello. Unfortunately, you will probably be more angry than we have been, and now you've missed all the nice articles which explain things. But Con, thank you for being here. Thoughts?
Bro, I am so annoyed. I am fuming. I am fuming. This football club is a joke. Todd Boehly, you're a joke. You backed this man 6 days ago getting Aubameyang and letting Gilmore go. And today you're looking at Graham Potter. You sacked the guy. Chelsea Football Club has not changed under Roman, has it? Like, we thought we was going to build and trust the guy. Tuchel stuck with us for our darkest times. If you look at his first 100 games, you know, it's not a sackable offence. Cool, it's a rough patch. Yeah, it happens. We're rebuilding. I don't know if people realise this, but a rebuild means you're not that good to win that Premier League and Champions League, hence why you need that rebuild and that project, you know? And as soon as there's a little rough patch, gone. Not even 10 games into the league. Whatever, man. Whatever. If you told me Tuchel was going to be sacked before Brendan Rodgers, you know, something like that, I would have said, mate, you're waffling. You're absolutely waffling. But Chelsea Football Club never seek to let you down. Todd Boehly, whatever, mate. Whatever. I used to like you. I'm never forgiving you. Clown.
See, Con is making this very entertaining. It's honestly unfortunate because I assume you haven't had time to read all the articles in depth, especially the ones behind the paywall.
I have, bro. I have. I saw
you
I
have?
missed your
Okay.
text. As
problem.
soon as I saw the news, bro. So you knew last night I went to a quiz night, innit? So I woke up hungover. I thought that was going to be the bad point of my day. But no, I wake up to that crap. I think I saw something about Tuchel left, and I was like, what's going on here? And then I see David Ornstein parted ways. I was like, what is going on? And my heart, that's what it felt like. Dagger. Whatever, man. We need to... I can't, bro. I can't believe it. I am never getting attached to a Chelsea manager ever again. I refuse to. I did it with Carlo. I did it with Mourinho twice. I did it with Jose twice. Even with Lamps. Even though I didn't even rate Lamps before, I was like, I don't really want him to do it. But when he was here, I loved him. And I hated how it turned it out because as soon as it went one way, I knew how it was going to go for him. So I was like, just get me someone else already. Because I don't want to see the legend of my club go through this. And now we did it with Tuchel as well. He won 2 trophies last year, got us to 2 cup finals. 3rd place when we were sanctioned. When we had a player we signed down in tools, doing interviews. This season, we had a PR for a pre-season. Bro, it wasn't a proper pre-season. It was for PR. We was doing more travelling than playing football. We didn't look ready for the season. We didn't even have our team ready. We didn't even replace the players we lost by the season started. And then you're going to sack the guy already. I don't get it. What's Boehly's plan here? Because I'm reading, the Potter thing's been thought about for weeks. But it was only last month we was talking about renewing Tuchel's contract. What's going on up there? And how are we appointing a new manager without a director of football? Who's making that choice? And then I read, the person who's made us so bad from set pieces this season's got to be our interim man. What's going on in this club?
Apparently, we're going to probably appoint Potter by tomorrow. So we won't have to worry.
So it's been something that's been going on through the time then. So it's been something that's been considered for a while then. So then why did you back the guy 6 days ago? If Todd Boehly really loved Gilmour like we've been told,
this is the main part I agree with. Why sign Aubameyang? That's the part I don't get.
But it's also letting Gilmour go as well. You don't want to, if you're on deadline day, if you're bringing players in and letting players go on that manager's choice.
If you're thinking exactly if you're thinking to get rid of Tuchel, just call Gilmour and you're like, bro, you don't need to force a move now. We might sack him anyway. Do you know what I mean? And then tell him we might also get the guy instead who you are going to now. So just say, do you know what I mean? Surely if they told him that, he would have been convinced. Before I take it back to the other boys and we talk more about Graham Potter, because we've spent an hour and 20 minutes already on the Thomas Tuchel situation. I do apologize, Con. I do quickly want to highlight these 2 paragraphs to you as well. I asked the boys about it too. I want to these 2 paragraphs. I'll read them out again just to get your reaction to it. Typically warm with his players, he, being Tuchel, had grown harsh and distant to those with knowledge of the dynamics at Cobham. Young players felt harshly targeted after they made mistakes, while the data on clean sheets, chances created, and most importantly, results since the end of last season were plain to see. There was an unnamed fringe player who was earmarked to face Leicester, only to be dropped at the last minute. Tuchel usually explained such decisions, but he did not in this case, and it left the player feeling isolated and angry. Now, while you are totally fair to have the thoughts that you have, now, of course, these things could just plainly be wrong, but we have to assume that they're correct in this case, I would say. Though doing those things doesn't exactly help you, does it? When you do those things, of course, you're going to slowly but surely lose the dressing room. That is an inevitable situation, I unfortunately fear. And that's why I'm like, well, yeah, maybe I agree it was too early. But do I honestly, in my heart, believe, and in my head as well, the way I see football, do I honestly believe that it would have changed, say, by today, September 7th? Say by October 7th. Do I think things would have been any different between now and then? No, if I'm honest. So at that point, you need to pull the plug at some point. I just never thought they would. I never in a million years expected Thomas Tuchel to get sacked before we appointed a new director of football, because I assume basically what Connie's saying, that Boehly isn't going to want to appoint a new manager without having that expert there. But at the same time, I wouldn't mind Graham Potter that much. I mean, we'll talk about that soon, but I wouldn't mind him. But Con, what's your reaction to these 2 paragraphs? This typically warm with his players, he had grown harsh and distant to those. That's not good. Young players felt harshly targeted after making mistakes. That's not good. Fringe players told that would start and then dropped at the last minute without explanation. That's not good. There is things, while I understand you and your criticism of Tuchel, of the sacking of Tuchel and the criticism of Boehly, there is, if those things are even remotely true, then there's no surprise problems were occurring. Do you know what I mean?
But that happens at a football club. But Arsenal's a great example with this with Arteta. Didn't he have problems with Mesut Ozil? Didn't he have problems with Aubameyang? He's had problems with this issue. And do you know what he was given? He was given time. He was given time and backing to deal with the situation.
You don't tell a young player he's going to start and then tell him, actually, you're not starting, and don't tell him why. You don't do that. Come on, bro.
It's not that deep. Things change in football.
Deep, bro. You shouldn't do that.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
I agree with Con, actually. I don't think it's that deep. I think you just tell them to get on with it. If anything, they're earning a free wage that week. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Exactly that. Like, if you thought you was going to start, things change. Things change. That's just how it is. He might have had a bit of a tactical look at things and change something like that. You just don't know. And I'm sorry, sometimes that's what it's like. When you're in an elite football club, things like that can happen. And if a fringe player is crying by not playing, you can leave then. You're a fringe player for a reason. Thomas Tuchel has given everybody at this club a chance. I don't think there's one player who hasn't been given minutes. Who?
Yeah, Billy Gilmore's the only one.
Besides Gilmore, fair's with Gilmore and Ampadu, right? But the senior squad, every player in that senior squad, I've seen the likes of Marcus Alonso play. I saw Kennedy given a fair shot in pre-season. I've literally seen players I don't think are good enough to play for Chelsea Football Club given a chance and a fair one. And this stuff happens at a football club because Arsenal were a great example of it. But what did Arsenal do? They gave him time to turn it around. And they didn't give Tuchel time to change it around. Even though Arteta didn't win anything with Arsenal, and he was doing worse than, what's his name? Emery. He was doing worse than what Emery was doing. They gave him time. They allowed him to let the players leave he wanted to. They allowed him to bring in the players he wanted to. And after Tuchel, what he did for us, especially last season, go back and watch those interviews and how them journalists, those little rats, talking about how Ukraine's Chelsea's fault and how Tuchel dealt with that. He stuck through us through a horrible time. He didn't have to. People said, oh, he's under contract. He could have got another job. Manchester United was sniffing all over him. You had Rio Ferdinand saying, oh, United should go for him. But no, he stayed here. He stayed here. And then you ask him to be like a sort of director of football when he says he just likes to coach. He was put in an uncomfortable position. Does that go against him now? Because he just wants to be a coach, the job that he was appointed to do. Cool. If you don't think Tuchel's the guy to go forward with, make the decision
can I ask
early.
you something on the basis of that, before you go into the next topic? Because I said this to the boys, and it's fair if all of you disagree with me. Because to me, Tuchel knew that this was going to come this summer. Like when Boehly took over, I'm sure he was informed, bro, I need you this summer. I need you because I don't know enough about football. We don't have a director of football because Marina got gone, whether she was fully sacked or whether her decision to leave was also involved. Czech left. He knew that he was going to have to deal with that this summer. Now, whether he likes it or not, he was told this. So if he didn't like it so much, he could have left. And if he didn't like it, but was like, okay to deal with it, then don't let it become a problem. Because typically warm with his players had grown harsh and distant. Now, even if you don't think it's a big deal, when a manager goes from being nice and warm and a nice guy to being a prick, no players aren't going to like that. You're not going to like if your boss is usually nice to you and all of a sudden he doesn't treat you nicely anymore. No one is going to react well to that. And if that's purely on the basis that he didn't want to be director of football at the same time, which he wasn't, that's also what another article said. It's like Boehly's kind of thinking, well, I was the guy doing 99% of this work here. So like you did that much extra anyway. So why are you throwing AC fit? So I'm like,
I disagree with that, Laurenz, because you say that. Why didn't we have our team ready for when the season started then? Boehly wasn't some
because
hero
of the sanctions,
this summer.
so I don't think that had to do.
No, we spent like 2 weeks discussing Ake just to walk away. That's nothing to do with sanctions. That's it.
Tuchel.
Then walk away earlier. Man City never changed their price. Just walk away earlier. And then Rafinha, how long he wanted to go Barcelona? How long did we wait after him? He wanted to go Barca. Deco was saying he only has eyes for Barca. Yes, it's Tuchel target, but the person negotiating should know. And Arsenal's director of football even said, he texted him, said chances Rafinha would come here this season. And Deco texted him back, because I watched it on I can't remember where I watched it, and he said, no chance. He only has eyes for Barca. So then what were we clowning around for? Fofana, how long did we take on that deal? We spent over 20 days on Aubameyang. That's nothing to do with sanctions. So Boehly, yeah, he did work, but he delayed. He delayed it. We only had, since match week 5 or 6, where we replaced both of the centre-backs we lost last season. Mm-hmm. So I don't count that 100 million as Tuchel's money spent. because they needed to be replaced.
I agree with that. Yeah.
So, like, as much as Boehly can be angry at Tuchel at the start,
fancy it, then it is.
No, but Laurenz, come on, have a bit of sympathy for the guy, because pre-season was basically PR. Bro, they was more traveling than playing football. They weren't matching when the season started.
That's making excuses.
Bro,
we had much worse pre-seasons before. We flew
the pre-season was a shambles.
It was Asia to Australia, like way further than we travelled.
No, but the vibes around pre-season were dreadful. They honestly, they were like it was shambolic. The pre-season. No, it was organised by the old regime. But what I'm saying is that style of a pre-season tour was never going to get the players ready for the start of this season.
Mm-hmm. There was a lot more work that was needed. In pre-season, and because of obviously it had already been agreed and whatever, but that ain't Tuchel's fault. And I think that there's probably a little bit of difference in that maybe. And I think maybe they wanted answers for, again, that tour in America where we got beaten by Arsenal. They wanted answers and Tuchel didn't have them. And you can't blame them.
But we had 3 games in the States and 2 games against Udinese. Like that's not enough to get us ready for the season. We're woefully underprepared.
Oh, there he is. Con was gone for a second. I mean, Ian, I'll start with you. What's your reaction to the things Connor said? Do you agree with his side of the things? Are you kind of anywhere in the middle of the situation? Like I say, I don't want to, when I counter argument Con, I don't want to make that sound like I'm fully disagreeing with him and I think it was right to sack Thomas Tuchel. I think it was maybe early. Like I said earlier, in my heart, I'm not sure if he would have fixed it. And at that point, there's like better now than in October, better now than in November. Now it's September. Yeah. And there's like basically the complete season is still to go. So like if it was a serious problem that can be fixed with a different guy, it's better now than in October. It's better now than in November.
I think that I saw a comment earlier on. I can't remember who said it, but shout out to whoever you are anyway, about Potter coming in and not having any European experience. Now it's quite a small little thing in terms of this, but in terms of the bigger picture, Potter hasn't got the European experience at all, but he has got the Premier League experience. And realistically, you're thinking about Tuchel and about what he's done for Chelsea that's been really good. On the last day of the season when we won the Champions League, the last game of the season we were lucky that Spurs lost. Spurs beat, was it Leicester?
Yeah, Spurs beat Leicester because we lost
Spurs
to Villa
beat Leicester, yeah. And then we lost to Villa. We were lucky with that. And Tuchel was, get out of jail free card, basically. That was for Tuchel. You then think about when we won the Champions League and what he did well was he essentially identified what the problem was, which is that we couldn't defend to save our lives. Identified what the problem was. He then went for this back 3, back 5, whatever you want to call it. You can go and do whatever you want in terms of that, but it's all about keeping goals out, obviously. Of course it is. He identified that problem. He did incredibly well at that problem. And that was his major success as Chelsea manager, was to damage limitations enough to then go on and win the Champions League. Now, we definitely deserve to beat Real Madrid. We definitely deserve to go and beat Atletico and Porto and all the games. We thoroughly deserved to win it, but it wasn't because
even in the final, it was 50-50 enough for us to be okay winners. It's not like we lucked out.
We didn't dominate City at all. We defended really well, but again, it's not. Yeah, as you said, it's not. We 100% deserved to win it. We were the best team in the competition that year or whatever. That was never the case. So Tuchel has never built this really impossible outfit to play against. He built a product that essentially did a job for 3 or 4 months. You then have the whole of the Premier League season last year, and Chelsea were never really anywhere near having any sort of a title challenge. It faded off way too soon. And with the sanctions and all the stuff that came in, it was always going to be a problem. But we, again, only really identified the crux of the matter, which was, let's try and not concede goals. Let's try and not concede goals. And there was such this emphasis on play the back 3, play the back 4, play this, play that, blah, 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 blah. And it was all thinking about defensive areas. Everything was defensive. And you now come to this part of the season, or this part of the new season that's come in. And I'll be that surprised that, again, this defensive unit that we had that was so good, it was been brilliant in that defensive unit throughout. But we lost Rudiger, we lost Christensen, we almost lost Aspi as well. Obviously, we kept him, but almost lost them. It's never been that same look unit, never at all. But then you think about everything else that Tuchel had in terms of success as his time as Chelsea manager. It was 2 games to win the Club World Cup and 1 game to win the Super Cup, which we had to win on penalties. And again, the Club World
against
Cup
the lesser
final, we had to
side.
win
Mind you,
an extra
Villarreal
time.
made it to the Champions League semi-final last season, but that season. But still, we are the Champions League winners here. Like we should be expected to win that trophy.
We played against a big team in Liverpool in 2 finals and lost. That was that was another one of Tuchel's successes, shall we say?
Yeah, you can't have a go at him, especially the first one when Lukaku's goal should have stood.
Yes, no, I completely agree. I don't want to hound him too much for those 2 cup finals because we went to penalties in both. Anything could have happened.
Yeah,
but at the same time, doing this 7 weeks ago in pre-season would have been a PR disaster. It would have been an absolute nightmare. Doing it just before the the summer transfer window shut. So maybe someone else comes in and they've got 2 or 3 days to go and buy these different players is then a PR disaster because if it all goes wrong, it was rushed. Everything was a nightmare. This at the moment, when it's just kind of now into a normal bit of the season, obviously it is only just after the transfer window is shut. But realistically, you're thinking if this was a week down the line or 2 weeks down the line and the results weren't getting better or international break was coming up, which I think is at the 24th or something like that.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
That's the weekend or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You could have so many different potential outcomes from it. I don't like the fact that they've sacked him, but I also at the same time am a realist in thinking he was a good manager for us. Not great. He did one great thing in winning the Champions League, but the rest of it, in terms of the success, has all been a bit. Christ, that was lucky.
We did lose. We lost 3 cup finals. We lost 3. We did lose a lot of cup finals after him. I'm not saying that's his fault.
It was
2 of them on
18
penalties.
months, wasn't it? Six cup finals in 18 months, which, we've got there. Brilliant. Of course we have. But this Premier League experience that I was saying about Potter having, he's had it. He's built a really good team at Brighton with a lot less money. He's had that product nailed pretty much down. He's got it on lock. Tuchel has never had any league success. Even when he came in and took over Lampard, he didn't have league success. You're thinking about last season just gone. We made top 3 because the 2 teams that were below us wanted to basically throw it away every other week, it seemed. That was how it pretty much went. So it's not necessarily been us having success that Thomas Tuchel has been kept around for the last 18 months. It's just been we've been better than others that have been worse. Now these other teams in Arsenal and Spurs and even Manchester United are better. We're now being left behind. So for me, I know obviously we're talking about the Champions League and we love winning the Champions League. Of course we do. But it comes from the Premier League success. You play the majority of your games a year in the Premier League. 38 compared to, I think, is it 13 if you win the Champions League from start to finish?
Yeah.
I mean, it's chalk and cheese, isn't it? It's a million different miles apart. You have to be able to have this manager that can do it every single week, week in, week out, build the consistency, and then also turn it on in certain games, in the European semi-finals or quarterfinals or whatever. That's what Poch can do. That's what Pep can do. That's what Klopp can do. They can both do that, but they also do all the other stuff around the league as well. So as much as I hear people saying, we want to win the Champions League, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to have this big change or whatever, let's focus on trying to do better in the league because that's where the consistency will really be built. If we're really good in Europe, no one cares unless you win it. And we know that we've got to go for a lot more consistent teams in Real Madrid and in PSG and in I was going to say Barcelona then, Christ, and Man City and Liverpool. There's so many better teams. Bayern, you've got to get through all of these who are so much more consistent. We are hoping that we turn it on for one. We hope we turn it on for 90 minutes. It doesn't work like that. So the fact that Graham Potter might be coming in from Brighton, who are a team that has been, down a little bit, they have got limited resources. If we can get the crux of that and build a real good unit, consistent unit, might be with some new faces, that is exactly what this football club needs. I think people, although we love the Champions League, really need to remember the Premier League is where it's at, and that's the most consistent football that we'll play. That's where you're going to build your momentum. That's
and
where
the Premier League, let's not even just
all your problems being solved.
Let's strip it back to a little bit to a fan's heart. The Premier League is the competition we play week in, week out. if we don't want to be depressed all the time, which we have been for the last 3 months as Chelsea fans, then what we
about
need
the
is
Champions League.
better Premier League results. That's what we really need.
Exactly.
Like, Champions League is all well and good, but like Ian said, number one, you don't play it for 3 months between late December. Well, this season is a bit different. This season, we don't play Champions League between November and March. So like, and the rest is all Premier League, which, I mean, like I say, Lampard's form after Southampton was the same as Tuchel's form in the last 15 games was the same as Lampard's form in his last 15 games. It's a tough one. Con,
it's difficult.
I'll ask Charlie on Con's reaction as well, but someone put in the chat here, and it is true, I read it elsewhere earlier. Con, in Tuchel's first 50 games in charge, we conceded 24 goals. Because obviously yesterday was his 100th game. And then in the next 50 games, we conceded 53 goals. Now, of course, sanctions play a part, but even losing Rudiger doesn't really play a part because we only lost him, 7 games ago? So, like, you can't even say, losing Rudiger is the main reason for that. Maybe the injuries of Kante and Kovacic can be used for that, but, I mean, Tuchel had a whole summer to replace those and decided not to. Until deadline day, until we lost to Southampton, and then we made a £50 million bid for their midfielder, Lavia. Like, when you hear that stat, number one, did you know the stat? And do you think it's a worrying stat, or do you still think that like it's just a bad spell? Because 53 goals in 50 games as Chelsea compared to 24 in the first 50 is really bad.
Yeah, but there is context. I knew that, by the way. I saw it. There's context. We had a massive injury crisis. Why does everyone forget about that last season? We had a massive injury crisis. And do you know what's funny about the Graham Potter thing? What I think is absolutely hilarious, right? These players clearly turned on Tuchel and weren't happy with him, right? Watch when Potter plays them out of their out-favoured positions. Because last time I checked, Trossard isn't a wing-back. They're playing midfielders up top, full-backs and centre-back. So the players don't like playing position out now. Fans don't like players playing out position now. Yeah. It's got to change with Potter, isn't it?
Absolutely, that will happen. The players out of position, that won't change if we get Potter.
Yeah, that's not going to change. And yeah, cool. Like I said, but there's rough patches. We had a horrible pre-season. We started off so slow. Cool. We didn't have all the players we wanted in by the time. So it just takes a bit of time. Players need time to gel in. Patience. I know we want to be winning every game, but we got to be realistic and look at ourselves right now and say, all right, well, we are Chelsea Football Club, but we're not Chelsea Football Club of old. We're in a new place right now, and it takes a bit of time. And all we need is a bit of patience, but we never have patience. Ever. Yeah. Ever.
I do hear that. Can I ask you one thing, Con, before we get to actually talking about Graham Potter a bit more, and potential other managers, which I personally don't want. Is it, like, because obviously the Boehly and the whole ownership, when it came in, they were like, and all we were told, like, long-term with Tuchel, and we believe in Tuchel. And now they're saying, whoever the new manager will be a long-term manager. Now, do you think it's somewhat fair enough that as a new ownership, they want to pick their own manager who they know will be on board with what they want to do? Because Tuchel was already here, and Tuchel didn't seem to be on board with what Boehly wanted from the manager in terms of being in that direct conversation on a consistent basis. If Tuchel doesn't want that, that's okay. Like, Tuchel is okay to not want that. But Boehly is also okay to want that. And if the one guy doesn't and the other guy does, then it's not going to work. Then there is never going to be a happy ending to that. And that's where I am. As like, if that was the case, that Boehly always wanted this kind of manager and Tuchel didn't want to be that kind of manager, there was never going to be a happy ending. So it was always going to happen eventually anyway. And then I'm like, well, then better now than later, right? That's my perspective on it. Because I'm like, well, if you buy a new club for £4.25 billion, it's your right to have a manager that you think that's gonna be the manager you want him to be. Like Roman Abramovich did that.
Then be honest.
Roman Abramovich did things his way, so Boehly is gonna do things his way, I guess.
But be honest from the get-go. Then, if you want a new manager for a new era, because I've read that as well. Be honest from the get-go. Who cares about PR? But be honest, I will appreciate that more.
I think I think honesty is that they wanted Tuchel, but
I still remember Tuchel saying in pre-season, Laurenz, when we lost the game, I think to Arsenal, saying players are still here and things haven't changed. So Boehly, why weren't the players out the door then? He hasn't been perfect this summer either. Tuchel might not have been, but he hasn't either. He spent too much trying to like get the likes of Ake, the likes of Rafinha, I even tried to get Gnabry when he was untouchable. Trying to tap up players was just never going to happen, taking too long on deals. And do you know what? I have sympathy for that because he's new to this and it was an uncomfortable position to be put in. But then at the same time, don't over-expect from Tuchel then at the same time. I had sympathy for Tuchel and I had sympathy for Boehly. But Boehly clearly had no sympathy for Tuchel then. So I have no sympathy for him. You failed us this summer. Don't care what anyone says, he did. Simple as that. You took too long messing around and now you made this decision at a horrible time where everything's up in the air. New players haven't even played. Aubameyang played like how many minutes of football? Where's he stand now? That's clearly a Tuchel signing, Aubameyang, because that connection they had. Because Boehly wanted Ronaldo, and I read somewhere that was another reason why they disagreed on something. Boehly, what do you know about football? Oh, we want Ronaldo? Cool. But he's not Ronaldo from probably when you was watching comps and watching your little Premier League games.
I do agree,
Real Madrid.
But we ended up with Aubameyang instead. Like if we signed Ivan Toney instead of Ronaldo, then that is a fair point. But we signed Aubameyang. Aubameyang is no less of a problem for the dressing room than Ronaldo is. So
I think that's subjective for a start, and I think Aubameyang's more of a team player. You saw how he played yesterday. Do you think Ronaldo's trying to pass to Sterling like Aubameyang was?
No, that's why he would have won.
He's shooting off the bat.
Any good striker bangs that straight across goal. Sorry, any good striker does.
Yeah, you need to shoot there. Like, what is he doing? Even the cross from Havertz. Why is Aubameyang stopping his run? Like, I know they've only trained twice together, but still, you can't stop your run there. Like, what? I don't understand. But Fantasy PGA Tour, I do agree with this comment completely. It's 1,000,000%. I don't understand it. I mean, they say it's been in the works for a couple of weeks. This Graham Potter, unlikely, but theoretically, I mean, they might have asked Potter, "Do you fancy Aubameyang?" Could be unlikely, but could be. Charlie, any reactions to all the things that Connor said and stuff before we actually finally talk about Potter? I don't want to be here for too much longer.
I get it. For me, like as we said before, you know, it doesn't make sense that the timing. I get what Ian was saying, that, you know, could we have given it, you know, a little bit longer, maybe to the international break potentially. That could have made more sense, but yeah. It's just the fact of, you know, we weren't getting the noises from this ownership group that they were unhappy with the manager. You know, this is the same manager which they've sacked this morning, that a few weeks ago they were looking for him to extend his deal, and now suddenly they don't want him. So I don't.
Apparently, you've been thinking about this for weeks, but what?
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
But you've been thinking about changing the manager for weeks. Well, if you're unsure about the manager in place, don't then bring his players in for him and then get rid of him after you've done that. Like that for me, I just don't understand that. Look, I think Boehly is obviously come in and I think he's done well, but then there's also things where there's a complete lack of experience on his behalf. And is he trying to do things kind of like the American way, as it were? I think his coach that's been is at whatever it is, at the Dodgers or some, he's been there for 7 years, and I think he's just signed a new contract for another 3. So this he does like to have long-term managers, but I don't understand how they've come to the decision that they feel Tuchel couldn't be that guy. I mean, what's going to happen now when Potter comes in? And let's be real,
he's not going to be the guy either, and the manager.
Things aren't going to get.
What's going to happen? Yeah,
things won't get that much better. Things aren't instantly going to get better. This season is going to be really tough to make the top 4. Let's be perfectly clear. This is going to be a struggle for us to get in the top 4 now, and that the remit for Potter will be come in the top 4. If you can grab us a cup, great. But it's very much going to be finishing the top 4. Like with Potter, if we're playing Europe, what happens if we come 5th this season with Potter? Are they bringing the energy that, we know he's our long-term manager, we'll back him regardless? Like, what happens then? Like, what happens if he goes through a patch of form like Tuchel's gone through? What happens if he, you know, in 10 games and there's only 2 or 3 wins? What happens then? Like, are we saying now that this is the guy regardless of what happens? Like, what is the thought process behind all this? It's all very well saying we want a long-term manager, but, you know, does that mean that literally they can just literally have whatever form they want, but we want him for the long? I don't know.
I do agree, but how do you fix that problem is my concern, because you can say, it's always the same at Chelsea. Maybe true, but always different players. Like, we don't have any.
Yeah,
but
we
don't have any the same players now that we basically we had when Conte left, for example.
Yeah, but 6 games, right? no one, even if you don't particularly like Tuchel, no one can tell me that 6 games is enough time to get your ideas across and get basically half a new team to gel together. You can't tell me that 6 games you've already come to the conclusion that this guy is not the guy.
Spot on. And the thing is as well, Tuchel's got credit in the bank with Chelsea. He's won stuff with Chelsea. So when things go bad with Potter, and the only reason, this is the only good news about today, is that's probably the replacement. It's the only thing I'm somewhat happy about, right? Because he's a good manager. As much as I'm annoyed that we sat Tuchel, that's the only thing I'm happy about. But Tuchel had credit in the bank with Chelsea, and things went wrong, and he was gone that quick. What assurances is he going to have, Potter? Because I'm pretty sure Tuchel was told, "Oh, we'll give you time. We're giving you this money." So it could be just empty words, and I'm scared for that. I'm scared of how Boehly and co are going to treat Potter if things go wrong.
But do you potentially see, obviously, Potter coming from a smaller club like Brighton, they've done really well in terms of players on the way out. They've found some really good players like Yves Bissouma, who they've sold on, Cucurella, who they've sold on for big amounts of money. Do you think that potentially with players like Chukwuemeka has already been brought in, and who's the guy that we signed from Inter Milan?
Casadei, Italian, yeah.
That I don't even going to try and pronounce it. But, do you think potentially players like that, again, who were maybe bargains or maybe they're ones for the future, maybe they're potential gems, diamonds in the rough or whatever. Do you think that's the angle that Chelsea are going to go for? Or is it going to be the same old, we're going to basically buy a success? Because I think if it's the buy a success thing, this is where you go for Zidane. This is where you go for the big guns, But if you're trying to build that project, there are not many better people out there than getting Graham Potter in. And I think that maybe that's what Tuchel was thinking as well. Maybe Tuchel didn't want to build a project. Maybe Tuchel wanted to win right now. As much as we love Chelsea and Chelsea are the biggest club in the world in our eyes. But is it the same as Thomas Tuchel's? Could Thomas Tuchel think, well, I want to go and get a job at Real Madrid. I want to go and get a job at such and such. Obviously, it's all gone tits up now for Thomas Tuchel, but there could be ulterior motives in it. And actually, parting ways with Thomas Tuchel is actually the right option because Graham Potter is the right person to build this long-term project. Because
Based on what, Craig?
Sorry?
Based on what?
What, that Potter's the right person?
Yeah, based on what?
Because he's brought in people at Brighton who've then sold on for a lot more money. It's better scouting. You forget it was only, what was it, last week that McLaughlin got kicked out?
Yeah.
Or was leaving or whatever. Yeah. Is this
what's the scouting got to do with Potter? What's the scouting got to do with Potter? That's just good scouting from the
club. No, I'm not saying that, but would Potter then bring people with him? Does Potter ask for something in particular? That's the thing. You don't know. I'm not too sure. Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong. And that time will tell with that one. But I feel like building a team, which is what Potter has done for the last, how many years has he been at Brighton? 3-ish, something like that.
Yeah, maybe in one. Yeah, around that.
I think about Klopp when he was with Dortmund. It was a 2013 Champions League final. I remember seeing video clips where they built that Dortmund team all based around players that were born at a similar time. So they all had similar interests and it was like a whole big belief thing. I remember watching it. I'm pretty sure you'll find it on YouTube somewhere. It's just about Klopp building a team and all that sort of stuff. But you then think about if Potter does that at Chelsea. Liverpool dipped 100% after, Rodgers went out, Klopp came in, there was a dip. They went into, I think, was it the Europa League final that they lost to?
Yeah, they lost to Sevilla.
Sevilla, 2015, 16, something like that. You're thinking about potentially going and having this little bit of a dip, which may unfortunately come. Obviously, we hope it doesn't. But then you want to make sure that when you are building a project, someone like Graham Potter would be decent because, again, that he's done it in the Premier League. Yeah, fine, he hasn't done it in Europe, but the crux of being able to push into Europe and really try and give it a go is you either throw all your eggs in one basket and go purely for Europe, which is what Chelsea have done both times we've won it, and we've ended up almost costing ourselves top 4 the second time, and we obviously finished 6th the first time we did it. Is that the approach that Chelsea want to go down or the new ownership want to go down, or do they want to try and build something and then have it over a number of years? I want to say this. I'm still not happy with Tuchel being sacked.
Can I just make one quick point now?
Go on.
Tuchel has only had one player since he arrived at Chelsea, one permanent signing that's played over 10 games.
Yeah,
how do you know what he's... That's Lukaku. That's Lukaku.
Okay.
So how do we know how his product will go when it was just wasn't given time? It wasn't.
Yeah,
given time.
I do agree. I do think that
I need to jump in on that. It was Tuchel's decision not to sign Tchouaméni last summer. He could have had that, but he decided to sign Saul instead. So that's not on anybody but Tuchel. He was like, nah, Tchouaméni needs another year. Now he's gone to Real Madrid. Is their new DM when they've got rid of Casemiro? We were stuck with Saul instead. Like, that isn't the reason Saul didn't play 10. The reason Tuchel doesn't have at least 2 players with more than 10 games is because he didn't like the player he got in Saul. But not like that's no one else's fault.
Lawrence, I take on point in your Tchouaméni point. I take on point in your point there. Yeah, he took an L there. That's fair enough. So then let's say hindsight, we got Tchouaméni. That would be only 2 players that would have played more than 10 games who have a permanent signing for Tuchel, who played more than 10 games for Chelsea Football Club. How can you judge what a project will look like based on 2 permanent signings?
You can't.
No, it's just not. He wasn't given the time.
Of course. It's just for me. It's honestly. It's just how the
Tuchel
started acting. How he didn't seem to,
of course,
want things anymore. The way that he came out at halftime earlier than the staff and the team yesterday, at 1-0 down. Why?
No, we've seen Mourinho, but we've seen
when he was earlier. You were always on the sidelines, involved, active.
Yeah,
and now all of a sudden, like Lampard, involved at the start. Those things, as things went wrong, he was just sat there doing nothing.
Yeah, of course.
Tuchel was acting the same way. To me, it was written on the wall. It was just a question of when would Boehly pull the plug, and it was way earlier than I ever expected. But if we're honest, everything that happened since the start of the season, pre-season not going right, Tuchel constantly complaining about it.
We've seen it.
Signings, it was just happening. It was coming.
We've seen it play out before. We've seen this play out before, and reaching this conclusion is like it's not right. But to be honest, none of us are really that surprised. Maybe we're surprised it's happened this early, but are we really that surprised this actually happened? We're not that surprised. But at the same time, though, like as Con's been saying, how do you come to the conclusion after 6 games when you give someone £200 million on a players they want that this guy is not the right guy for this project? If he wasn't the right guy, if he's not the right guy for this project after 6 games, he wasn't the right guy for the project. Full stop. So then you should have got rid of him. So you should have got rid of him before. Like you're not. You're either right for the project or you're not. Don't tell me that 6 games in you're not right for the project, but 6 games ago you were right.
How could you expect Boehly to know that from the get-go? How can he know whether Tuchel is the right guy? Like, surely he has to get to know Tuchel and get to see what's happening to know that, or not? Surely.
Yeah, but then he has to give him more than 6 games, though, Laurenz, doesn't he? Like, you can't make a decision after 6 games.
This is you also said it was written on the wall, so at that point, just pull the plug after 6 rather than 16.
Laurenz, can I put it like this? Regardless if you think this could have been written on the walls, right? It was premature. I think we can all agree on that, right? It was premature.
Yeah, for sure.
Fine.
It was premature. But I think, you know how we've had, like Conte, should have been sacked much earlier than he was, but we didn't. Well, that
should
was
have also been back the same day as well, though.
Maybe, but that's a different onus, right? So you can't exactly blame Boehly for that. But what I'm trying to say is sometimes we stuck with managers for too long. Sometimes we pulled the plug too early. What I'm so surprised, I know we have a new owner now, but I'm just surprised about all the outrage because I'm like, we're Chelsea fans. You're not used to managers getting sacked. Like, come on now. We're Chelsea fans.
Laurenz, I think Laurenz, the reason there's such an I think that's why it's such an outrage is because of this guy. He loved this club. He proved that. And what he did for us last season, some of us will never forget that. A lot of people downplay them sanctions and think, oh, it's fine, whatever. Like, no, that was a serious situation. And he stood by us, and he was the only person at that club coming out and even talking on our behalf and defending us. And he was saying he would drive us to games if we could. That's why we love him, because in our darkest time, he stood there and he was our captain. And that's why we have loyalty to him, where I will give him more than 6 games. If he's like, if it gets to December time and we're in the bottom half of the table, the football looks crap, just lose loss, no problem. If you sack him then, that's fine. But give him more than 6 games. He's earned the right more than 6 games in the league. I'm sorry. I just can't.
Can I say something, Con? You know how you said, how do you know Potter is the right guy and he's going to be different? I'll ask you something now. How do you know not most managers in the same situation that Tuchel was in would have stuck with the club that same way? I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm saying, how do you know? You don't know if most managers wouldn't have acted similarly and have also handled it well. Like, he did it really well, but that's not to say that he's the only one that would have done.
Well, mate, I'm not sure if any other manager would have handled that sanctions business as well as Tuchel did, and then the way that he speaks. Like, obviously, we'll never know because we're not gonna be able to rerun it.
One person would.
But what do you mean by that though? Because what are the managers going to do? Leave?
But Lawrence, that doesn't matter if someone else could.
Like,
Lawrence,
fuck off their compensation, which they're not going to get if they quit themselves. Why would you leave? Like,
Lawrence, but that doesn't matter though, because someone else might be able to do the exact same thing. But bottom line was, it wasn't somebody else. It was Thomas Tuchel who did it. He could have easily walked away. He could have easily gone to an elite club, but he didn't. He stayed here and he was our captain. That's all that matters to me. I don't care who else could have done it. He was the one who done it. So I love him for that. Thank you, Tuchel, for doing that, because the club was getting dragged by everybody.
Bro, I agree.
Everybody.
I'm not trying to discredit him by any means whatsoever. By the way, I'm just saying that was a period that he helped us through all of it. But now this summer, at least in Boehly's opinion, he didn't help him enough. Now, should he have helped him more? Maybe he shouldn't have ever been put in this situation. But that's not Boehly's fault. And of course, it wasn't Tuchel's fault either. But it's not Boehly's fault that we were in this position. I said this earlier. That's Vladimir Putin's fault and no one else. That this whole situation was like this, that we had this summer with no director of football and that Tuchel was required to do so much. That's no one else's fault. So if Tuchel didn't want that, that's okay, bro. But then if he didn't want that, then it was always going to have to go at some point if he didn't like that. There was no other option on this. Let me quickly get to the super chat and then we'll finally talk about Potter. I've been trying to do this for 20 minutes, but we haven't got to it. Mark Griffin, appreciate it very much. As a US sports fan, Boehly would have been furious when Tuchel talked of owners need to get new signings in presses, sacked walking off podiums in the US. I mean, I'm not a US sports fan, but maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong, Ian. Thoughts?
Yes, he is right. There's a big thing about how you communicate with the public in America, obviously, because they're the ones paying the money to be, aiding your club or whatever. But the way that you speak about hierarchy is very, very different in the States because obviously it's a franchise system. So it's.
I don't mean to be rude to say this though, but this isn't American sports.
No, I do agree. I do 100% agree. But just saying for this, he is correct. It would have been sacked on the spot. That's probably where Boehly needs to adapt. But
he didn't sack him on the spot, so
yeah.
But let's talk about Graham Potter. And I said this yesterday already. Not even with the Tuchel will get sacked, but as in I said it would be quite funny if we got Graham Potter, because basically what Graham Potter is the English Sarri, and the English fans, a lot of them all hated Sarri, and the non-English fans hated Lampard because he was English. So now we're going to find a way to combine them both. So that's going to be very funny in the fan base, how people are going to deal with that, because I think it's very similar. A manager that hasn't had a big club before, even though Napoli are a much bigger club than anything Graham Potter has been at before, but still, neither have won anything. Like, I'm not sure, maybe he won the league in Sweden with Östersund. I have no idea. But, right, maybe. But still, nothing significant anyway. A guy that's coming here with a philosophy and playing good football and basically Sarri, which is, I find quite funny because I was a big fan of Sarri. I found it very unfortunate the fans booed him, which made him leave, and then we got Lampard. But yeah, so I find this quite entertaining personally, because I'm very intrigued how this is going to go. Now, some people in the chat, including Fantasy PGA Tour, said he's not ready. This is too big, and this is a little bit. I see that. Is it too big for him? Is it too big to go from Östersund, Swansea, Brighton to Chelsea Football Club? Is it too big? It might be too big. It might well be. But I can tell you one thing, and that's just my opinion. You guys might have different opinions. I'll ask you in a second. I don't want Pochettino. I don't want any of that. I personally think Pochettino is one of the most overrated managers in the whole world. How you can fail to win the league with PSG is one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen in my whole entire life. And people say, he was so great at Spurs. I mean, he was, other than that he lost everything. He literally lost everything. He came third in a title battle between two. How do you do that? I don't want that. Yes. But none of that. Zinedine Zidane, don't want any of that either. If even Frank Lampard's dynasty and pull, the pull was useful, but in terms of the respect that he automatically received, if Frank Lampard in England can't get that, doesn't help that, Zidane won't help that. Zidane is a wonderful manager to deal with huge egos. That's not Chelsea Football Club, though. I mean, maybe to some extent it is, but that's not Chelsea Football Club that way. It's also not what we want to be either. So I don't think Zidane should be anywhere near us either. Now, do I think Rodgers should be anywhere near us? Of course not. Rodgers should be somewhere in the mud going back to Celtic or something, but certainly not at Chelsea. But I'd certainly prefer Graham Potter out of Pochettino, Zidane, and Rodgers. Ian, go on.
I'm going to throw another name out there. One that hasn't been mentioned, but I'd like to just know people's genuine thoughts and about trying to build a project and all this sort of stuff. What about Thomas Frank?
Brighton just play nicer.
Do we care about playing nicer, or do we care about getting results? Because I have to say, to be fair to Thomas Frank,
no, can't exactly say they're doing badly.
Oh no, yeah, but they did this last year, didn't they? And dropped off ginormously.
Yeah, but they came ninth in the end, which for Brighton is a huge success, if you're honest.
Yeah, of course, I'm not denying that at all. But I think if you're trying to build a project and really try to back something, you've got to have that idea and fundamentals in place. And to be fair, we've built. I mean, people call me slightly a passion merchant, but I want to see a bit of fight and determination and people that just genuinely, pardon my language, give a shit about the football club. And I have to say that Thomas Frank is phenomenal at getting his people to do that. You know, it's obviously.
I just don't think Thomas Frank is made for a big club, and I think Graham Potter is a little bit more. Just my personal opinion.
Oh yeah, no, it's just a genuine open question about what people think, because I think if you're looking for certain fundamentals, you may not get a lot better than Thomas Frank, depending on what your priorities are.
Maybe I'll get to Charlie because Charlie needs to head off in a second. Sorry, Okari. I mean, the Bundesliga.
Well, two Bundesligas, yeah.
More than Thomas Tuchel had one before he joined us. Except French trophies, but you never know how much they count with, when you're PSG manager. But Charlie, what's your thoughts on the new manager as a whole, but also on how Graham Potter more specifically? Now someone in the chat said they don't see at all how Graham Potter is supposed to be the English Sarri. Do you disagree with me too, or do you see what I'm hinting at with that?
No, I think his style of play maybe similar, but at the end of the day, we've seen Potter can build something. We've seen what he's doing with Brighton. It's a fantastic job, but again, this is still a big gamble. Let's make no mistakes about it. This is a gamble, and it's something that is going to be a long-term project of Potter coming in. Potter's not going to come in and instantly be successful and instantly solve all of our shortcomings. It's going to take a while to do that. This still, whilst he's got a good record at Brighton, he's an exciting young coach and he's done very well for himself. This is a massive level up, and obviously, I know you're not going to know unless you try. But this is a big step, and it's going to be a totally different way of working. There's going to be so much more scrutiny on him, so much more media coverage on him, and there's going to be a much more intense desire or an intense scrutiny about results. As I said earlier, all right, if you lose 3 games at Brighton in a row, but I'm not saying no one cares, but it's not that big a deal. You lose a couple games at Chelsea. That's like end of the world sort of situation. And can he deal with that? Can he cope with it? I do like him, but I do also buy.
I will say, bro, we're still Chelsea. It's not like we have a manager before when it doesn't work out. But this still, I get it. It's an attractive proposition, and it looks like it's going to be him. But let's be under no illusions. This is still a big gamble. At the end of the day, this is still a big gamble. And you talk about the other guys. For me, my big worry about Pochettino, other than him being a serial bottler and stuff, is the fact that will we have a similar situation with Poch and the fans as we did when Rafa Benitez came in? We should. Do you think Mason Mount and Reece James will get on with Mauricio Pochettino? No chance.
But what I'm saying is, though, if it doesn't look like it is going to be, but you've got to look at that as owners. Even if you're thinking about speaking to Poch, are the fans going to be fully on board with it? Is he always going to have the backing of the fans?
Are they going to be on board with Potter? Some of us, but all of us? I don't know.
I would suggest that I'd like to think that a larger section of the fan base would be more on board with Potter than they would be with Poch.
But they would. But would you agree that the biggest majority of the fan base would be on board with someone like Zidane?
Yeah, but
just because
Zidane's difficult. I personally think Zidane's going to take over the French national team after the World Cup. I think that's what he's waiting out for. I think he could have gone to PSG if he wanted to. He didn't. I think he's holding out for the French national team job. Zidane in the Premier League, look, he's a good manager. He's won 3 Champions Leagues in a row with Real Madrid. That is a phenomenal achievement.
But would his style of football work in the Premier League? Can you see him doing well at Chelsea? I'm not so sure. I think if it was I think for me, Potter is I don't know. I know this might sound ridiculous, but I think he's a better choice than going for someone like Zinedine Zidane.
I completely agree. I think
a
lot of people in the chat, bro, are talking about Hansi Flick. Do you see that? I mean, good manager would maybe even be what we could do with. But the guy's Germany manager, and it's 2 months before the World Cup.
And we're looking to make an appointment before the Fulham game on Saturday. So that's just a no-go.
Yeah, and Oscar in the chat, like, Deschamps might want even less than Pochettino, if I'll be honest with you.
We're not going to wait until after the World Cup to appoint someone. This is going to be an imminent appointment. This will be done this week. Providing Potter says yes.
Exactly.
Providing Potter is happy with everything in this meeting today. That's a done deal. The only chance that this rumbles on past the Fulham game is if Potter doesn't want the job. It's that simple.
I completely agree. Charlie, appreciate you for being here. Everybody check out his channel. It's linked down in the description. We'll see you soon. And I'll ask Con about Graham Potter. You asked earlier. Sorry, Charlie. Cheers. You said earlier that's the one thing that you're kind of happy about today. How would you explain that? Why would you be happier with, say, some Graham Potter to Zidane or Pochettino or any of the other ones? By the way, ladies and gentlemen, we've been streaming for 2 hours and 11 minutes, and we still have 650 people watching. I massively appreciate it. Get subscribed if you haven't already, on the road to 20,000 subscribers. And smash the like button for me as well. And if you have any thoughts that you really want us to talk about, use the super chat function. But Con, thoughts on the whole Potter situation?
Do you know what, mate? I'm still in disbelief that we were even having this conversation right now.
Yeah,
I still can't wrap my head around it, to be honest. The thing is, with Potter, what he's done at Brighton it's been good. Nobody can take that away from him. He's been a really good manager for Brighton. But you're taking a chance on him to become Chelsea manager, that big step up. And we couldn't give Thomas Tuchel a chance, Makes me feel sick, to be honest. If he comes in, I'll back him, of course, because at Chelsea, I love the club.
Sorry. Is this true? Has anyone seen this? I mean, we don't have Pies here.
I haven't seen anything about it.
I have not seen that. I think Joseph might be capping.
There was a guy in the chat earlier on saying that Boehly just landed in Barcelona. So,
well, yeah, but he's taking it.
Yeah.
But sorry, Con, go on.
Yeah, just we'll be taking a chance on Potter for sure, and we couldn't take that chance on Thomas Tuchel, who's done a lot for this club. So, whatever, man. I'm just not attaching myself to him. He's an employee for all I see.
Absolutely, Joe Dell. We're not getting rid of Con. We're getting rid of you. Unlucky. But I am also in this disbelief. I'm just shocked. I honestly, I know Con is going to hate me for saying this now. I'm on the one hand shocked and a little bit also impressed. I know that's the wrong word to use, and Con hates me for this now. But what I mean by using the word impressed here is that never in a million years did I expect Boehly to have bollocks like this. Like, whether you agree with the decision or not, it's a big bollocks decision. That's for damn sure, whether you agree with it or not. Like, it's a big call, to sack, especially after what we've discussed. Just signing Aubameyang, deadline day signings, a whole transfer window where we had a record-breaking summer transfer window, which we were told was on the back of Thomas Tuchel's wants, even though I've seen Sky say, a lot of these signings weren't actually Tuchel signings, it was a more broader approach. I think, personally, that's just Sky trying to gang up on Todd Boehly now, but sure. I could be wrong, of course. I don't know, do I? But I did not expect it. And I'm impressed by the cutthroatness, because I was a little bit concerned. That was one of my concerns going from Roman Abramovich to Todd Boehly. The reason why this football club became as successful as it was post-2003 was because we were as cutthroat. Sometimes too cutthroat. Example being Carlo Ancelotti. Example being Jose Mourinho's first dismissal was a bit too cutthroat, in my opinion. But still, the reason why we made it as successful as we were was being cutthroat. And I was a little bit concerned that maybe that goes away now that we have a different owner, but it didn't, which to some extent fills me with a little bit of hope that Chelsea will still always be Chelsea. Do you know what I mean? And it's not going to turn into something completely different.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Graham Potter for 5, 6, 7 years, I have no idea if he's going to be good enough to win the Premier League, if he's going to be good enough to win anything. I have no idea if, as a club, as a team, as a set of players, I will ever think we will have a fair chance at beating City or Liverpool anyway, if I'm honest, or Man United if they get there again. I don't know. some people might ask, are you willing to take that chance? It's not really up to me anyway. I'm willing. I'm happy to. One thing I'll say, and it sounds a bit strange, but I almost think it will come as a positive for Potter to not have preseason. And I'll tell you why now, and you can give me your thoughts after. Because everyone's aware, especially at Chelsea, manager bounce is a thing. So if Potter can use manager bounce to just get us playing a bit better, and then use that time period, especially have the World Cup, but we will have a few players here still, not all of them, but a few players, and use almost that as a kind of preseason for at least the players that are here. And you've got to think some players will be knocked out early, so they will come back while the tournament is still going on and while the league is still paused, right? That he can actually take that period of first the manager bounce and then implement his style. And then Sarri had problems with David Luiz before the Europa League final, but that was a very minor thing that I think was okay. He had two big people with issues. Callum Hudson-Odoi wanted more game time, and Gary Cahill, who was like, I'm the captain, why you're freezing me out? Well, because you're not good enough for what Sarri wanted to do, and because you're a shit captain that had a go at the manager 3 days before a cup final, and that's the worst thing a captain can ever do. So, frankly, I feel no sympathy. But obviously, Sarri was only here for a season. But Sarri seemed to lose the dressing room the least out of anyone. And why? Because he played football that the players enjoyed. Maybe that's just what we need. Maybe we just need football that the players enjoy. And if the players enjoy it, the whole player power thing won't become a problem. I'm not saying I'm right with that, but I'm saying maybe that's it. Because how can it be that we have multiple different managers? Mourinho, Conte, Lampard. I mean, Lampard wasn't negative, but still. Lampard, now Tuchel. So many managers with completely different sets of squads, but always the same problem. So what is the main what's the word?
Component.
The main component, but also the common denominator. Is that the word?
Oh, the common theme.
The common theme, yeah. What's the common theme? Other than Lampard being the one exception, it's negative managers, pragmatic managers. But we sign players that are not pragmatic players. If we sign players that were pragmatic players too, I don't think we'd have this issue. But we don't sign players that are pragmatic. We sign Havertz, Pulisic, Kovacic, we have Reece James, we have Mason Mount. These are not pragmatic players. Jorginho, as another signing, he's not exactly pragmatic, is he? The one thing he's bad at is defending. Maybe this is what we need to have, not these issues. I don't know. Now, Tuchel is gone now anyway, so I can't sit here and say just stick with Tuchel. Now we have to pick from what's available, and I would pick Graham Potter, and I would have hope that can be a positive just for that reason. Ian, do you think that manager bounce and then a more positive play style? And now my one negative is he also seems to really like a back three, and I don't want a back three, but he plays a back three with three centre-backs and then as wing-backs, midfielders. Now, Reece James won't go away. I think Cucurella and Chilwell won't go away because they're the type of wing-backs who are so good offensively, you don't need to play different players there. But also, he doesn't play real wingers, so I'm not sure if Hakim Ziyech and Christian Pulisic will be any more happy with Graham Potter. But I see what I'm saying with this theme?
Yeah.
Our club and the players we have are just not suited to a pragmatic manager?
A problem I've got with this kind of takeover at the moment, it's not necessarily a problem, but it's just an issue that we've got to face, is that we actually don't know what our best style of football is, because we haven't played a style of football in ages, it feels like. It feels like we kind of go out there and we'll give it a go and then we'll kind of see what happens, and then normally it's all right, but every now and again it's not, and we just panic. That seems like our style of football. It's if we've got the ball, they can't have it, and then if they can't have it, they can't score. That's essentially the logic behind our play at the moment. Yeah. But with the whole transition to a new manager, is our football defensive or is it actually attacking, but we just don't know what to do with it? It's a very weird vibe. So I don't quite know what sort of direction Chelsea are wanting to go in with this, because I would turn around and say that Graham Potter is a more forward-thinking coach, but at the same time, anyone that plays a back three is thinking about it for defensive reasons. So that's what Thomas Tuchel did. That's why when he played a back three, he's thinking about it for defensive reasons. The reason when Thomas Tuchel won the Champions League is because he made sure that he was sound defensively. And obviously we went on in that game and obviously scored on the counter attack, basically. So is it actually really defensive, or is it being pragmatic, which is we're going to soak up all the pressure that City are going to obviously have against us, and then we're going to go forward? You know, there seems to be, other than the 2 games we played against City last year, which were both pants, but we were reasonably good before we went down to 10 men against Liverpool at Anfield, reasonably good. We were poor against Liverpool when they came to the bridge. Obviously, then came back to 2-2. But against Arsenal, early stage of the season last year, we were really good. We were brilliant against Spurs last year. We effed around with Man United, which is a problem. But is it actually him being really defensive and really negative as a football manager? Or is it just these players raising it for the occasions that they want to raise it for? Because again, we went to the Bernabeu and mullered Real Madrid. Unfortunately, we let 2 sloppy goals go in. But we were minutes away essentially from knocking out the eventual
one
winners
of the greatest Champions League comebacks in history.
Yeah, it would have been phenomenal. So, is it a case of the manager coming in is going to change everything, or is it a case of the players and the personnel that are actually on the pitch haven't quite got that mentality? Now,
But
you
bro,
could
how
say
do we fix
you could
that
say
issue,
it dovetails together, and the manager will help out with the mentality. Of course, you can, and I do agree. But it's one of those things because we don't currently know what our best formation, best lineup, what people's best positions are. This is a massive project, which is why I like Graham Potter to come in, because he has built projects before and other managers haven't necessarily. He's got the advantage in this scenario over Zidane, because Zidane comes in and the 11 players that he needs to pick are pretty much picked themselves, i.e. Ronaldo, Modric, Kroos and others.
Yeah, see, I agree with you to some extent. Well, that's why I tried, when I initially said defensive, I changed the word to pragmatic, because I think that's different. And I think you're right. We weren't defensive under Thomas Tuchel. We were pragmatic. And yeah, maybe it's to do with the players, but how do you fix that problem? Because how can we have this very same problem, whether it was Lampard, Terry, Drogba, under, for example, Villas-Boas? You have those players losing their shit when the manager is doing what they want to do. Now, then we had it under Conte when we had the Hazards and Williams and I don't know, all these loads of players. Then we had the same thing with Lampard when we had the Jorginhos and Rudigers and, those types of players. And now we have the Mounts and the Reece James as the main, like the starting to become the main figures in the team, alongside like Thiago Silva, Jorginho, to some extent, even though he didn't start the last 2 games. Those as the main figures, and we still have the same problem yet again. So either it's a problem that our club breeds, and I don't know how we would fix that, or it's a problem that every club that we would face no matter what and no matter who, and we just need to work around that problem. We just need to make sure the problem doesn't occur anymore. Do you know what I mean, Ian?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. It's really difficult. And again, I don't know the answer, and if I did, I would tell you instantly here, and we'd all be solved, and it would be problem over. But I just think with the way that Potter builds a team and does something different compared to other managers that we've had in the past, I think that this could be the fundamental and the crux of it. Because you look at Lampard in the first year that he came in, he didn't half build a team, to be fair. We were crap for the first few games, but we really did have a couple of big performances during Lampard's first season. Made an FA Cup final.
The start of the second season
no
was
one expected
unbelievable.
that.
Like, we were top of the league in November.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we were really good. And again, Lampard.
Although we were also top of the league under Tuchel last season for a long time.
Yes, yeah. We should say, yeah, because that is fair. Yes. If I think Chelsea have needed a rebuild for a number of years, I do, and I think even when we won the Champions League, if you look back on old videos that I'd done, I'd say that Kante and Jorginho both needed to go because they get in the wrong side of 30, and I would sell them now whilst we still have the money to be able to rebuild. That's irrelevant now. I said that like 2-3 years ago. We're now focusing on right now. This rebuild is essentially still needed. And all the other managers in question, and even Thomas Tuchel, to be fair to him, have never done a rebuild. So I'm not trying to say that Tuchel, being sacked was the right decision or whatever, but maybe it's in the thoughts and feelings of Boehly and the new ownership. So maybe that is a crux. Brighton don't necessarily have rebuilds, but they do always get faced with problems, and they have to come out and basically pull gems out of the woodwork, which is what I was saying about Yves Bissouma. Even Neil Mopai as well. He's not exactly a bad player. They've now sold him on as well. Not obviously for the same as Cucurella and Yves Bissouma, but if you can find those odd little gems, that will make Boehly's life and what they call Clear Lake Capital or whatever they are. Yeah. The whole thing will make their lives a hell of a lot easier if they don't have to every single summer go and spend excessive amounts of money to go and bring this squad to life. Otherwise, that's all Chelsea have been doing for the last 10 years. And I think that is why Potter is being approached. And that is essentially the crux of this, is because although they've spent big this year and they clearly have intent to build big again in the future, and that's what they've outlined to us from the first year, they can't afford to go and spend 260 odd million every single window. Because for a fact that next year, when we have another sort of transition, Jorginho's got to go, Kante's got to go, they're looking at spending 50 million on Alvarez and potentially 100 million on Declan Rice. So that's another 150 million pound. Or is there a couple of gems that Graham Potter might be able to go, I like him, I've seen him for a while, I want to get him in and can do the work that way? That's where Chukwuemeka could potentially come in. That's where the new Italian youngster could come in as well. It's about finding these little gems. And to be fair to Potter, he has done it a lot more than anyone else has done it.
Yeah, I do hear you, absolutely. Let me quickly read out this super chat before we get to Con, and then we're going to finish this one off. Appreciate it by Lightbulb. Son, get an interim. Wait for Pep to sign at the end of the season for bottling the Champions League again. Get Pep. Now, I would kind of agree with you, but didn't Pep say he will never coach another English club? Didn't he say?
Yeah.
So I think you're probably going to have to get that out of your head. As much as we'd probably all love that. I think that's rather unlikely. Now, one concern I have with Potter is and it was a little bit there with Sarri, but at least he had Napoli, which huge fan base, huge pressure, huge everything. Now, Potter hasn't had any of that. How will he handle our egos, like a Hakim Ziyech, like an Aubameyang, I don't think Thiago Silva will ever be a problem, but if Thiago Silva is dropped, will he be a problem? I don't know.
I don't think he would, but
I don't think so either, if I'm honest, especially all he really is doing this for is to get to the World Cup at full fitness. The World Cup is so soon that after that, I don't think he's going to be bothered that much anymore. Fofana, he's just not going to be dropped.
Sorry, hasn't Aubameyang retired from international football?
Aubameyang, but he's playing for Gabon. It doesn't really make a difference, I don't think.
Okay. Did they make it to the World Cup?
No.
I was going to say,
Gabon is you and me know. Gabon is very small. They don't have a lot of people and not a lot of people to play football. Didn't they? I remember wasn't it in June when they were traveling, and then they caught malaria at some point on international duty, and they were stuck at the airport because the Gabon FA couldn't sort of flights or whatever. It was all sorts of kicking off. I don't think they're quite ready for the World Cup. Any other players could they? Jorginho, I think Jorginho would probably play quite a lot under Graham Potter anyway. So I don't know if any of the big egos I feel like could be Mason Mount, Reece James, and Aubameyang. But I don't think
I think it would also be Pulisic, and I know Hudson-Odoi has one.
Yeah, but he's not here at the moment anyway. So.
Yeah, of course, yes.
Pulisic, yes, but I feel like Pulisic just being stumped down enough that he's not going to be an issue now, unless Potter makes him a important part of the squad again. If he does, then Pulisic can be an issue in that way. But yeah, I still don't think he's played for long enough and been successful enough anywhere to be that big ego problem yet. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, I don't know. Kondo, do you, number one, fear that with Potter that he could have problems with the egos? People say Tuchel had their problems with the egos at PSG all the same, so it's not like Tuchel didn't have problems with egos. But do you have a worry about that? And just in general, do you think it could go well if we go for Graham Potter?
A big thing where a lot of players were upset is because they weren't playing in their natural positions, right? And I don't see how Potter, who also plays a back three and plays players out of position, how these same players are not still going to be upset. So I don't get from there.
Do you think that being unhappy about the position you play only applies when the results aren't there? Because I think when the results are there, no one cares what position they play.
No, because these reports were coming out when we were winning games. If you remember last season, we was winning
but not
games.
Playing well, though. like winning.
It
but not
doesn't matter.
playing
It
nice.
doesn't matter about playing well, man.
I think it
What is
does.
this? Aesthetics FC? It doesn't
No.
matter.
What
We're not at that level
What I'm
yet.
saying is to the players. I think if you play left wing back and you're playing, even though you're
Well,
not
what
left
players
wing
are we
back, but you're
talking about
playing
here?
well,
Because
and
we're
you're
not
in
talking
the team,
about
you're not going to complain
Laurenz.
about that.
We're not talking about your Thiago Silvas, your Reece James, like the best players at this club. We're talking about the fringe players, the players over the years who haven't proved they're good enough. Why do they have an opinion? Shut your mouths and put some performances in once in a while, you know?
Yes, I
I
agree.
agree with this. I agree with this.
If it was our best players coming out and talking about Tuchel, you know what? I'd be down to listen, but I'm not listening to these scrubs talk about Tuchel in that light, man. I just refuse to do it. Thiago Silva and Reece James, only two players who.
I mean, the reports are that the whole training ground got very tense, not just with fringe players, right? So maybe you're right.
I know. I just see the same problem still persisting. Like, Potter's a good man. Like I said, he's a good manager. I like him. We're taking a chance on him, but I like the philosophy he has. I like his idea of playing football. I don't know if the Chelsea fan base will, because it is quite similar to Sarri in a way. The reason why Potter's looks so good now is because he's been given time and patience to have this project he has here. So
How long has he been at Brighton for?
A fair few years.
Yeah, fair few years
he signed with them in. I fucking lost it now. 2019.
Okay, but at the start of the season or in the middle of the season?
No, so it was 20th of May. So it was the 2019-2020 season.
Ah, yeah, and they got rid of who was the other guy?
Chris Hughton.
Chris Hughton, yeah, and a lot of people were actually a little bit surprised and shocked because they had a good season under him, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
And then they got Graham Potter, and look at them now. So fair play.
It's one of those where I just have to just ask like Chelsea fans who are listening, right? Like, it might not start off pretty. Like it might start off really well. You never know, new manager bounce, but you know it might be a bit rough. But just give the guy time. It's not his fault what happened with Tuchel. I'm not gonna have any grudges against Potter because he's not the one who fired Tuchel, is it? Like I'm fuming at Boehly right now, but it's not Potter's fault. So I hope he comes in. He's my man who I'd pick afterwards, 100%. I'm not picking Poch. He's always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Yep.
It's not the guy I want at Chelsea Football Club. Zidane,
Absolutely.
I think similar to Tuchel in a way where in Europe he's really, really good. League, not as good. So if we're trying to focus more on league, we need someone who's better at the league, and Potter seems to be decent at that.
Especially at the moment, we need to first make sure we're in the Champions League again next season. So we need to be better in the league.
Yeah, and in my opinion, I don't think right now there's a manager out there who's better than Tuchel tactically. So anyone who I see we're getting is a bit of a downgrade, but this downgrade here, like he's a young, exciting manager. He has the way of playing. I like it, you know, and yeah, I'm prepared to take a chance on him, man. I'm just gutted, man. I'm sorry if I seem a bit dejected, but I just feel crap.
Right, bro, it's absolutely
No,
fine.
we're all entitled to it.
Exactly. It's absolutely fair for Chelsea fans to be gutted, for Chelsea fans to be angry. We're fans. We're allowed to have feelings and opinions. That's what it is. I don't see Joe D in the chat said here, Potter and Sarri are literally nothing alike. Why are we doing this? I don't see how you're saying that. Their systems aren't necessarily the same, but their whole ideas of you play from the back, you play attacking football, you play passing football, you play pressing football. All of that has got Potter written all over it. Also, the fact that they've not had a particularly successful past before potentially coming to Chelsea, that is very similar. Do you know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of similarities. Obviously, they're not exactly the same, but I think there's a lot of similarities in my personal opinion. But I think we need to end this without questioning: was it the right decision? Was it the wrong decision? I think as much as things were certainly going wrong, and I was unhappy with a lot of things starting from pre-season, I was critical of Thomas Tuchel for a lot of things, even in pre-season. We need to thank Thomas Tuchel. Like Connor said it multiple times. He stuck with us in a very difficult time. Now, do I think most managers would have in that situation? Yes. But do I think many of them would have handled it as well as Thomas Tuchel did? No. So a big thank you has to go to him for that period. Obviously, a big thank you has to go to him for winning us our second ever Champions League. What a first 3-4 months. Well, he was appointed, 20-something January 2021. By May 29th, 2021, we had won the Champions League. What a few months that was. We was buzzing our tits off on a daily basis. The league was always shocking, and then we bottled the FA Cup final against Leicester. But those European nights, we was having a great time. I was over the moon. So a big thank you has to go for him. I feel bad for him because I'm not sure if he saw it coming. I would love to know. Someone said He didn't, but they also said it was a phone call, and everyone else is saying it was a one-on-one meeting. So I don't believe they're said that those people that say it was a phone call and saying that he was shocked, I don't believe them because they were wrong on the phone call already. So how can they know whether he was shocked? You know what I mean? But I hope he finds a new job. I hope he doesn't find a new job in England, if I'm honest. Don't really need that.
If I'm being real, Lawrence, I feel as soon as Ancelotti leaves Madrid, he's going there because that performance, like with Rudiger, how he impressed Madrid when he went there. I think Tuchel did the same because we actually played him off the park. So I feel with Ancelotti leaves,
and Ancelotti said he will retire at the end of the season, didn't he? Or will he just retire when he's done at Madrid and didn't specify at the end of what season?
I'm not sure, bro, but I think Thomas will go to Real Madrid and he fully deserves it. What he did with Chelsea, it might not ended on the greatest note, but I suppose he's not leaving on the worst terms ever. Like if you look at it, like his record in the 100 games is really decent. It's not bad. Like it looks a bit it's unjustful in my eyes, but yeah, like I don't think this sacking will ruin his job prospects. That's for sure.
No, I don't think that either. I just hope it's not in England. So, yeah. That's
well, if it is, bro, we only have ourselves to blame.
True. But yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a very long stream, 2 hours and 36 minutes, yet there's still 570 of you here. So please do subscribe if you haven't already. See, Ian's channel is linked in the description. I'm not sure how active that channel is at the moment. I've not spoken to you. I've only seen your Instagram post. But subscribe to it regardless. You know what I mean? Link is there. If he does post,
do subscribe. Yes,
exactly. Just subscribe, and if he does post a new video, you could see like, oh, fantastic news.
And tell you what, turn that notification bell on as well. Put it that way.
Exactly, so you don't miss them. Turn the notification bell on for my channel as well while you're at it. Subscribe, like I say, smash the like button. Please do follow Con on Twitter for more of, because a lot of people in the chat were very big fans of what Con was saying about this situation. So, if you want to see more of that, I'm sure Con will tweet plenty about it. So follow him. Thank you guys for watching. Up to Chelsea. More than ever, I have to say, upwards and onwards. Let's hope this goes on. I'm not sure, will we announce Graham Potter today? I doubt it. Maybe I'll see you again tomorrow for a Graham Potter announcement. Maybe we'll sit here on Friday and do a preview for Saturday, not knowing who's going to be in charge, or it's going to be Anthony Barry. So we're just going to concede 3 set-piece goals and do nothing else. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Up to Chelsea, upwards and onwards, and I'll see you next time.